The Four Magazine, Detroit, baby, we out here. You see what's going on, we activated, we ain't playing no games.
Without further ado, let's get to it. Welcome to another episode of Interviews with the Foreign Magazine, where we go beyond the veil into the thoughts, ideas, and perspectives of each guest that we sit down with, man. Today, we got a special one, man. Cortez Thompson. This man right here isn't a man who just read about the streets or read about the streets. He was the streets. From Detroit's east side to the belly of the beast. He's lived every code the game had to offer. He's been shot, kept it moving, stabbed and been stabbed. He's pulled triggers, had guns pointed back at him, from extortion, drug deals, prison stabbings, bloody retaliations. If the streets could name it, Tez had his hand in it. But when the feds, ATF, DEA, and U.S. Marshals stormed down one of Detroit's largest racketeering cases, indicting 40 members of his vice lord nation, Tez's empire came crashing down. Locked in a cell with nothing but time and truth, he came face to face with the cost of his choices. That was the moment made a decision, or that was the moment that he made a decision few lived long enough to make. To drop the flag that once defined him and fight for something bigger, his life. His book, Dropping My Flag, Picking Up My Life, is more than just a memoir. It's a confession, a warning, and a roadmap. Raw and unfiltered, it tears away the false shine of gang life and exposes the hollow core beneath it. Today, Tez stands as not just a gang leader, but as a gang interventionist and a youth mentor, along many other titles and names that he have as well, using his scars as lessons and his past as proof that change is possible. Even for the most battle-tested, it's possible. This isn't just a story that we're going to have today of redemption. It's a story of a man who lived everything that the streets glorify and walked away to tell his truth, man. So today on the platform, man, we got none other than Cortez Thompson, man. What's going on, brother? How's it, brother?
Man, I'm feeling blessed, man. Blessed to be here, man. Excited to come here and share my story, man. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to do so.
Well, yeah, 100%, man. It's definitely an honor and a pleasure, you know, with everything that's going on in Detroit and just amongst the youth in general, man. I felt like this conversation was needed. So we definitely had to have you on the platform, man. So just to get right into it, man, in the opening, you've been through everything that the streets have to offer. But before we go into detail of these different things, man, tell the people where you from. Tell the people a little bit about your upbringing.
So I'm from east side of Detroit, 7 Mile, 75 area, close down by Persian. I grew up to a single mother who abused drugs. My father also abused drugs. Growing up, we was poor. Eventually, we was taken from our parents' home because of my mother's addictions. And I found myself on the west side of Detroit where my grandmother came and, in a sense, rescued us and came, took me and my siblings in and raised us over there. But, eventually my parents kicked the drugs and got their lives together or whatever. So shout out to them for the change that they have in their lives. Their change actually inspired me and gave me insight and knowing that I could actually change in my own life. But I, got off into gangs at a young age and eventually, found myself going down, the wrong path of the streets, same individuals, that, is in prison. You know what I mean? Those the same people that I ran with. So I eventually, ended up in prison myself.
Yeah. Before we, move forward, man, when was the first time that you kind of realized that your household was different in terms of drug abuse and things like that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think growing up, I never really knew so much that, what at home was going on was different because, this is my environment. This is what I'm used to. But I think just when I finally started to realize just, not having everything that everyone else had, um, growing up, being poor or whatever, hand-me-down clothes, and we didn't have all the designer clothes or Nike or none of that stuff like that. So, looking at all the other kids, with the fresh gas on and, you know what I mean, Nautica and all that stuff like that, we ain't had none of that, we were shopping at, you know, and we doing government cheese, you know what I mean, Focus Oat food, you know what I mean.
Say the grape juice that you gotta put the holes in.
Concentrate, you gotta pop open, the cereal to just say cereal, you know what I mean? For everybody who was raised on that, y'all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it wasn't until police started coming around, for people not being at home and stuff like that I started kind of understanding something was kind of wrong. You know what I mean?
How many siblings did you have?
So it's in my mother's house. My mother had 5 kids, 5 children, but it was growing up, it was me, my twin sister, my older sister, my older brother. So 4 of us in the house.
So 4 in total. What area do you come in? Like,
So I'm a middle child.
okay.
So I'm a middle child.
Okay. How would you describe yourself as a child? Like, even in school, like, how did other people describe you, or what do you think other people would describe you as?
I was a high energy child growing up. I had a lot of energy. I was doing everything. I love being outside, playing outside. Love being with my friends. I never was in a sports. Nobody ever put me in a sports, so I can't say that I was, running around playing basketball or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I like school, but once I got into like middle school and stuff like that, I started getting in trouble a lot in school. But outside of that, I was a good kid. I listened. Until I started, getting a little of age, I started, rebelling or whatever. Acting out in class, doing things, not being a class clown.
Yeah.
Skipping school eventually and all of that.
Did you watch mom and dad? Like, was mom and the dad in the household at one point? And if so, what was the dynamics of their relationship?
Yeah, so my mother and father, I've never seen my mother and father together. So no, they were not in the same household. So that dynamic was, she didn't deal with him, he didn't deal with her. And it was pretty much like that. It's pretty much still like that, to be honest. It took me to get to the age of 30 to actually see my mother and father under the same roof. That was after I came out of prison or whatever. But yeah.
What was your relationship with Pops?
My relationship with my dad is good. Now, when I was younger, he didn't have his responsibilities intact when it came to us, so it was rocky. Him not coming around as much when I was younger played a role in our relationship as I grew. Since then, I've forgiven him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we've moved forward and past all that.
So in terms of that pivotal time where you had to move on the west side with your grandmother, like, what was the series of events that led up to that move? Was it any painful things, like emotionally, that you actually saw, whether it be going through that process, or, did the people come out and pick you up, or like, what was that like?
Yeah. So what happened was my dad ended up coming over to the house and coming to, see me and my siblings or whatever. And no adult was home. And even my oldest brother, who I think probably was like 13 at the time, he wasn't there. So it was just my older sister, who's 2 years older than I am. Rest in peace, my sister. But yeah, nobody was there. So usually, when somebody come to the house, we don't answer no door. You know what I mean? That was embedded in our mind, at least back in the 90s or whatever. But when I looked out the window, I seen my pops. So, that wasn't a usual occurrence. I'm like, the hell, all that I'm answering the door. You know what I mean? And when I answered the door, who here with y'all? You know what I mean? Nobody. Where y'all mom at? We ain't seen her in, I know, God knows how long, you know what I mean? He did what he thought was right, which was call the police, which probably wasn't the best decision, you know what I mean? Because when he called the police, CPS came and got us, you know what I mean? Child Protective Service came and got us, took us to some place downtown, cold and sterile, I'll never forget. And they was just asking us questions like, where your mom at? Have you seen her? And this, that, and the third. And they was telling my sister, oh, we about to split y'all up. We might have to split y'all up. And I remember, thinking about not, being with my siblings, like, man, damn, y'all gonna split us up. That was like the worst feeling, but luckily, like I said, my grandmother came and got us or whatever. So
Yeah. You said when he asked you, like, how long, when have you seen your mom? You said, God knows. Like, I mean, was it a while? Like,
I mean, at that time, I know it was, it was definitely a day. You know what I mean? It was definitely.
which is long for.
Yeah, for a 7-year-old, 6-year-old. Hell yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
So at what point, did you begin to like get in trouble? Like, was that before moving with grandma, or is that when all of the, enticing street things became, interesting to you?
So when my grandmother came and got us, I started going to school over on the west side, Quarry Elementary School over on Puritan. I think it's on St. Mary's, Pearson and St. Mary's. So from there, I'm adjusting to school and all that stuff like that. But, like a lot of Black families, once the social worker, left from grandma's house, you know what I mean? My grandma allowed us to go back home after a while, to live back with our mother. You know what I mean? So I was back on the east side, and that's when a lot of the problems started coming in. Me acting out in class, because I'm not in the traditional environment at home with the love and everything like that. So I started, kind of acting up for attention, you know what I mean? To get a little of the love that was kind of missing, you know what I mean? And that's when I started, fighting and doing everything in class and being a class clown for real, for real.
What was the first, I guess I would say, like, thing that I don't even want to say that you got in trouble for, because most times when a person hop off the porch, it's a lot of things that happen before you actually get caught. So like, what was some of the first like serious things that you kind of got into?
Yeah, I know exactly what it is. So after a while, when I came back home on the east, I was like, getting involved in a lot of stuff, hanging around crowd and all that stuff like that, smoking weed. And at this time, my mother was in recovery. She, had been clean from drugs for years. And, I started using drugs. I started using weed and stealing cars and all that stuff like that. And she would, catch me with coming home smelling like weed and stuff like that. I think that was like the biggest trouble I had got at one time. I had just got caught stealing up at Kmart, you know what I mean? Then the next day she watched my clothes. I had weed in my clothes, you know what I mean? And I think I was like 13, you know what I'm saying? And she like, oh no, I ain't about to be dealing with this. And she was going at me. And then my twin sister, who was like the opposite of me, you know what I mean? Never committed a crime, always got good grades, never was kicked out. She was, telling on me and stuff like that. Oh, he doing this, he doing that or whatever. So, I couldn't deal with that. So one day I came home, it was past the street lights. Growing up, that was the only rule you had, basically bring your ass home before the street lights on. And I think it was like 12 o'clock, you know what I mean? Like a few hours past the street lights. And when I came home, I knocked on the door, and my mama came to the door, and she was like, she opened up the door, and I could smell the weed like going in the house. I knew it hit her, you know what I mean? So she's like, boy, you come over my house smelling like a pound of weed. I can't believe you. You know my rules. This, that, and the third. It's 12 o'clock at night. Turned around and closed the door in my face. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm banging on the door. I'm like, Mom, come on, man, it's late. I ain't got nowhere to go. She's like, you should have knew that before you came over my house, before the street lights was on, smelling like a pound of weed. So, that made me so mad because in my mind, I'm like, you tripping off of weed. Whole time you used to smoke crack. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I really felt some type of way. So, from that, I rebelled, you know what I mean? And I said, I ain't never went back to her house. And, I left and I moved back to the west side, over there on the Haynes Brainfield and, Puritan, between Puritan and Finkel. And, that's when I started going to Cooley. And, from there, I just made a decision. I'm never going back to my mother's house, you know what I mean? And I think that was like the point in my life where I was like, let me tell you, I'm straight up with mama. Now I'm gonna do whatever I want to do, irregardless of whatever going on, however, whatever happens, you know what I mean? If I'm in the streets or whatever, then that's just is what it is. And from that point, when I left my mama's house, that's when I started to, go on a trajectory of, getting into the streets.
Man, the climate, man, different area, east side, west side, it's trenches and treacherous on both sides. That experience, man, in that Puritan Finkel area going to Cooley, man, like what was that experience for you? And when did, I assume that's when you begin to kind of go full-fledged.
Yeah. So it was a difference for sure coming from the east side, going to the west. Not like a lot of the stereotypes that, guys put out there. The west side, is soft, or the east side, cause it's nothing like that. But I think it's just a different climate, you know what I mean? On the east side, I feel it's more a little together, honestly. You know what I mean? I feel like the east side streets is more unified. The families is more together. I don't know if it's just the culture of black, people in Detroit, versus from, over on the west side where when my grandmother moved, back in the day, it was white people in that area. So I think that kind of plays a role in its differences of the size of Detroit. But for the most part, man, the same stuff that was going on the east side was happening on the west side. But I do believe that on the east side, you kind of be subject to a little more crime at a younger age. You know what I mean? And on the east side, we was selling crack. On the west side, young guys, they weren't selling crack. You know what I mean? Not we're over on Finkel. You know what I mean? Or Puritan, they wasn't selling crack. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that was a little difference. But when I started going to Cooley, I was a little older. As well as when I got involved in the gangs and stuff too. So
yeah, and because if I'm not mistaken, man, that area is kind of like a vice lord area.
I think that is for sure. That's a vice lord neighborhood. You know what I mean?
A lot of people talk about the history of gang culture in Detroit and like how new it is, but this is dating back to early 2000s, or as you would say, the 80s, and kind of knowing your history. So you say that, that has been like a heavy gang culture since the 80s.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, you got, Mr. Tony, who came and, laid insane vice lords down, and that's been the holy block over there off Puritan and Winthrop, for the longest, late 80s to, early 90s or whatever. Yeah.
How did your entry, to the vice lords come about?
Just hanging around my homeboys who was vice lords, older homeboys that was vice lords, just growing up around them, seeing them more operate. They in the neighborhood, they always, kind of took to the younger guys, you know what I mean? And that's just how I developed relationships with them. One of my close friends who's around with us, we had our group, the 57 Dope Boys, a neighborhood group that we started in high school. And actually some of the members ended up getting signed as a rap group. 57 Dope Boys had a rap deal through Detroit City Ballers Entertainment. I wasn't a part of the signed rap group, but I still enjoy, all the spoils of everything that we had going on. One of our friends, he was already a vice lord, and I used to take to him a lot, you know what I mean? Cuddy. And so I always looked up to him. And But it used to be crazy because we used to hang out and, you know, this our homeboy, but if the Lords came around, Cuddy dipped. You know what I'm saying? Like, he with them, you know what I mean? Regardless of what we going, it could be some, you know, some girls on the floor we trying to get with, a money play, you know what I mean, opportunity or whatever. Regardless of what it was, you know, he left and, you know, went with his guys over our friends, you know what I'm saying? So I used to be looking like, damn, you know, what they got that we ain't got. We together all day long. You ain't with them all day long. You know what I mean? And that kind of, you know, had me like wondering, like, what's up with them? Saying, yeah, what's up? Yeah, for real. Like, you know, it's like we was cool, but we weren't all the way cool. You know what I mean? So yeah, that kind of like sparked my interest.
Yeah. So can you remember like the first day that you actually became VL?
Oh yeah, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
You can't run us through it.
So yeah, I was over on Cambridge, in Rutherford. This where my particular deck that I got put down under in same schoolyard was birthed at. And, you know, I was called over there. I had already been hanging around the brothers, for months and, you know, building with them, learning, you know, ways of Lord's. And, you know, on this particular day, they said, you know, this is my day or whatever. So I was super extremely nervous because, you know, growing up, you know, your concept of joining the gang is, oh, I got to fight my way in. You know what I mean? I got to get jumped in. I got to get beat in or whatever, as they call it. And, man, me being so young, I'm little, I'm 5'6", 5'7", 100 pounds, 15 pounds. I got braces in my mouth at the time. I'm thinking about a bloody mouth. You know what I'm saying? All that. But, yeah, I pulled up to get put down. And, you know, so all these guys there, you know, they grown, you know what I mean? It's, you know, I pull up, they got guns and everything, you know, I really didn't know what to expect. But yeah, I got put down. It was something I never forget. And the one reason why I never forget is because it was a celebration. After I got put down, you know what I mean? You know, they celebrated me like as if I hit a game-winning shot, you know what I mean, for a championship. You know what I mean? Like we was a sports team or something like that. Me never playing sports. Only sports I ever played, the only team sport I ever played was gangbanging. I never hooped. I never played football. You know what I mean? If I wasn't playing the game, and that was briefly because, you know, back in the day, we wasn't sitting out playing, you know, the game all day. We was outside for real. You know how they say outside? No, we was outside back in the day as kids for real. You know what I mean? Once I left out of school, man, I'm outside all day long. So me never playing team sports, having that camaraderie amongst my peers, when I got that celebration or that validation from getting put down and blessed as a vice lord, it felt like I accomplished something. You know what I mean? I had peers around me that was, you know, congratulating me and welcoming me, you know what I mean, and telling me they love me, you know what I mean? Like I never experienced that. That was, you know, kind of like an outer body experience. So it gave me the feeling like, oh, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? It was reaffirming everything that, you know, was missing in my life. For real, for real. So yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's something that you say that too, because oftentimes like that's what it is. It's that brotherhood, you know what I mean, that camaraderie where, you know, other people is, you know, openly showing that they proud of you or they happy for you. You know what I mean? So I could definitely understand that.
Yeah, gangbanging ain't just gangsterism, you know what I mean? Oh, we about to go pick up this gun. You got to mind you, these guys are telling you they love you. These guys is coming up, they showing out, you know, showing up for your kids and, you know what I mean, doing stuff to your house. So it gives you the impression that these guys genuinely love you, you know what I mean? And a lot do. A lot of people do, you know what I mean? But when you're misinformed and when you lack in love, you kind of accept love coming from anywhere.
Yeah.
A bad person can show you love and you can accept it because you like, I'm missing love. But all love, just like I say, all money ain't good money. All love ain't good money. You know, a lot of times, sometimes, you know, that shit comes with something. Oh yeah, I'm gonna show you love. I'm gonna be here for your kid. I'm gonna be here for your mother. But you owe your loyalty to this. You know what I'm saying? And that's, you know, without hesitation, without question. And that's dangerous. You know what I mean? Because you can't blindly show love. You can't blindly give your loyalty. You understand what I'm saying?
100%, 100%. So I wanted to it was something specific that I wanted to ask you about. And that's what it was. Okay, so in terms of like some of the tenets that was interesting to you, because with anything that you become a part of, you have to learn the literature. You have to, know the tenets, the rules, the regulations. Like overall, like what was, some of the tennis rules, regulations that, the Vice Lord Nation had to abide by?
Well, initially going into it, I didn't know much about the literature. I'm gonna be honest. Um, yeah, I didn't care what the literature said. I was more going off the brotherhood. You know what I mean? What was showed to me and exuded through the brotherhood is what had me gone. You could have showed me something that said, you gonna kill yourself in 20 days. You know what I mean? And I probably would have went with it. You know what I mean? We were worried about that on the 19th day. Do I really got to off myself? You feel me? Because I was already tied in with the guys. But some of the principles that did, attract me was just, the principles that Vice was stand on, you know what I mean? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. You know what I mean? Which is the five highest principles known to man. So, they're universal principles. Like other things would be like, just like, the brotherhood, just how you deal with each other. You know what I mean? Like pieces of literature like that, when you come into being a vice lord, because there's 4 pieces of literature that all vice lords must know in order to be a vice lord, and one of them is called Statement of Love. And in that, it kind of tells you and describes the relationship that you have with your brothers and the relationship that you have to your nation. You know what I mean? And that's a beautiful piece. So that definitely I could say is one that will kind of attract me to the nation.
Yeah. So now you are officially a part of the VL Nation, right? When does things begin to like spiral out of control in terms of crime and, being involved in crime and stuff like that? Because even though, the tenets and the principles is built on love and freedom, justice, truth, things like that, it's still that other element. So like, when did that kick off?
Well, when I came into Vice Lords, I was already committing crimes. They never told me you couldn't commit a crime. You know what I mean? And I committed crimes with Vice Lords too. But when I was already, so growing up on the east side of Detroit, me, my cousin, my older brothers and them, we was snaking or whatever. So snaking, on the east side of Detroit is something that we turned over on East 7 Mile or whatever, where we would be breaking into stores, breaking into like liquor stores, cell phone shops, pharmacies, getting the safe, getting the all the goods and products and stuff like that. So I had already was doing this since I was like 15.
That's funny you say that, because now it's sliming,
Now they say sliming. You know what
you
you
say?
say?
It's snake business.
Snake, man, we been snaking. Matter of fact, shout out to cousin Dre, man. He locked up right now, but man, he even came up with a snake man dance. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean. But yeah, so we was snaking and stuff like that. So I had already was convicted at 17 of breaking and entering, my first charge. So I was on probation, and I end up catching another B&E while on probation, the same exact charge and just in a different city. My first charge was in Dearborn, my second charge was in Warren, Michigan. And I just continued to catch cases. You know what I mean?
What was it about the B&E gang, that, because it seemed like that's where you got your first, kick in the streets at, is, snaking or B&E.
Yeah.
Like, what was it about that hustle versus selling dope or, all of the other things?
So like initially, so it started with selling dope. So when I was younger, me and my cousin Damo, rest in peace, Damo, he stayed on the other side of Outer Drive. I used to go on the other side of Outer Drive on 8 Mile side with him and Mark and all of them, trying to see them and sell dope over there with them. And they had custos, white people coming from across 8 Mile, so they rolled over there. It was different. So but yeah, and still the money was slow. You know what I mean? Versus going out one night, breaking into the store, getting 10, 20,000. You know what I'm saying? You doing 5 minutes of work, you know, coming out with tens of $20,000. You know what I mean? You can sit over there on the block for a whole week. You ain't gonna make what I make. You know what I mean? So that right there instantly let me know I'm straight on selling dope. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go this way. You know, when I was younger, but I end up, you know, stopped doing that because after I end up catching a few B&Es, you know, I was facing more and more time. So I said, I'm gonna stop doing all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prison. Like the time that led you to actually going to prison, because right now you talking about being on probation, catching cases, but as time go on, it begins to evolve, and then you sitting down for some time.
Yeah. So when I ended up catching my third felony, you know, the judge, now this was in Oakland County. My first felony was in Wayne County. My second felony was in Macomb County. And my third felony was in Oakland County. And the Oakland County judge, Judge Bowman, said, "Oh, you just love breaking into stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sentence you to a long term in prison. So you won't never have to worry about breaking stuff again. I hope you don't." And he sentenced me. That's when he sentenced me to 7.5 to 40 years in prison. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to prison, man, you know, that was a culture shock for real, for real.
If I may ask you, is that the bid that I met you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we met in prison. Yep, that's what I was serving at 7.5 to 40. Since I was a third degree habitual, that's increased my maximum from 20 years to 40 years.
Right. And you ended up serving, did you end up serving more than the 7?
Yeah, I did 8. Yeah.
Okay.
I did 8. So yeah, so I get up in prison, man, and it's crazy. You know what I mean? One thing I didn't know in prison was that it was vice lords in prison. You know, so when I was on because I didn't never know prior to me going to prison, I never knew how big vice lords actually was. When I got down and, you know, the type of intimate family structure it is, I thought it was just some low key neighborhood, you know what I mean, type of situation. Even though I knew that it, you know, derived from Chicago and all that stuff, I didn't know that it was as big as it was until I went to prison.
Yeah.
That's when I gained a lot of insight on vice lords in general, and the history, the literature, and the concepts and principles and everything.
You know what? Which make a lot of sense, because in terms of like the love that grows when you see like, oh no, this is bigger. It's 30, 40 of us on the yard. Yeah. You know what I mean? And to think that, and this is every location that we go to, it varies, of course, but you know, so when you do realize that it's vice lords, you know, on these prison yards, like what becomes your mission in the nation then?
So my mission, when I found out the scope, how grand, you know what I mean, as far as the numbers and stuff like that, the vice lord nation was in Michigan, it made me, you know, kind of view it a little differently. But I also, at the same time, once I understood that reality, I understood another reality that's a big fact and a big problem with all gangs. And that was the disconnect from the individuals that was actually represented in prison from the leaders and the ranking structure at home. You know what I mean? And for an example, you know, Mr. Tony, you know what I mean, who was the chief elite, Michigan for 20 years, you know what I mean? A lot of people in prison used to be like, oh yeah, I'm under MT, I'm under him, you know what I mean? And essentially you are, because he's the head of everybody, but you know, it would make it seem like they know him, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, I got put down by Big Bro. Man, he ain't blessed nobody in 20 years himself personally, you know what I mean? So now I know you're lying, you know what I mean? So I seen that was like the big thing in prison. Everybody lying to fake like oh, they really got put down by these individuals who I got put down, the individuals who called me their little brother who I call home to. You know what I mean? So, and I seen where, you know, they just ain't know what they were supposed to know. You know what I mean? And I ain't even talking about literature. I'm just talking about the customs of Vice Lord, how we dealt and how we deal in the street. Nobody knew none of that. You know what I mean? So I made it my mission to teach everybody that. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of solid brothers that was in the joint. They just wasn't being recognized. You know, they was, you know, who they was. But now all those guys that be banging in prison, when you go home, none of that what you was doing means anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'd have been in the joint all these years, stabbing people, doing all this stuff like that. Don't none of that mean nothing when you come home. You know what I mean? To the guys who really, because they don't care nothing about no prison stuff. You know what I mean? That's prison. Prison is two totally separate different entities for real. But the disconnect with the vice lords in the joint versus in the street, you know, it creates a gap. You know what I mean? And you can't, you know, effectively give orders or kind of teach the truthful teachings if it's a disconnect. People don't even know who their chief is. People don't even know who their elite is. So I made it my mission to connect those ones from in the joint back to the streets.
What gave you that ability versus somebody else? Like, what was it so unique about who you were and your situation that made this even possible for you to do?
Well, I was already a ranking member. You know what I mean? I was already a ranking member. So when I came to prison, even though I was at a young age, I was 19, I already had high rank. And not only would I have rank, I was recognized. So those people in prison that had high rank and even higher rank, but it wasn't really recognized in the streets. So in the penal institution, you know, they was recognized amongst their, you know, environment and peers and stuff like that, but to the people who it really mattered to and to gang culture, you know what I mean? None of that matter. You know what I mean?
How was you able to prove that though? Like, by them not being there, like, how do you prove that you are a ranking member that should be respected as such?
Yeah, well, it's several ways to prove it. But I proved it simply by getting on the phone and putting them on the phone with the people who they said that, you know, that they was under.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So
like you actually knew these people are these.
Yeah. So it called they bluff. And then that's how the yard actually shifted as well, because you know, the population of vice lords seeing, you know, the strength, because that's, you know, rank and all that's strength. You know what I mean? That's why the young guys these days, they want all this rank. You know what I mean? Because you have to listen regardless of what's going on. I ain't been in prison 30 days. Here it is. These guys been in prison 15, 20 years, big as hell, cocky, tattoos. They killed so many people and all that stuff like that. Here I am, a young 19-year-old coming to prison, 100 pounds, soaking wet with braces in my mouth. Now I'm in here telling y'all what to do. You know what I mean? So, you know, they have to conform. So me being able to get on the phone, and, you know, be able to connect them to who, you know, really is. And they're saying, hey, yeah, Ortez, you know what I mean? That's the one, you know what I mean? Y'all got to follow him. And there was another individual who I was incarcerated with, who's still incarcerated with 3 Natural Lives. He was the head of the joint, you know what I mean? The whole NDLC. And he was already in tune with my chief P and all the brothers out on the street. And while he was in tune with them, you know, they was telling him, hey, little brother in there, you know what I mean? He on his way up in there, you know what I mean? He about to do this time or whatever. So Robert Earl was already telling people, man, Tez under me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was meeting people. They was like, oh yeah, I just left from Chief Red. You know, he said you second in command of the joint. So yeah.
So okay, so my question is, like, within your first couple years, like, did you rotate a lot of joints, or was you in the beginning of your big, was you situated in a specific joint for a long period of time?
I was situated at my joint. So when I first came to prison from quarantine in Jackson, you know, all prisoners go to Jackson first. So that's in quarantine. That's quarantine. So once you're in Jackson, you get designated to go to your particular facility. That's judged off, whatever security level you at. You know what I mean? High, medium, low, whatever. So my first prison, I went straight up north. I went straight across the UP, across the Mackinac Bridge into the UP, and I stayed there for 5 years. I stayed at my first facility for 4 years. Yeah, for 4 years.
What joint was that?
I was at Kinross Correctional Facility, old KCF.
So if I could recollect, so you went from Kinross to Newberry to St. Louis
to Earth.
Oh, to Earth. Okay.
Yeah, and then down to Carson City. I blew that, and then I ended up making it to I know after Carson City I lived with Adrian, and that's when I beat up the white boy. Then I got sent to St. Louis.
Okay, so boom, now it kind of get juicy now. You feel me? Because Kinross.
So when I was at Kinross, so
for the record too, for the people, extremely huge yard.
Oh yeah,
a lot of activity, a lot of stuff going on at Kinross.
Oh man, what? So Kinross is the second biggest yard in the MDOC. Kinross was a former Navy base. So it was really big. I'm talking about huge. The housing unit like apartments. You know what I'm saying? 3-story buildings. You get a key to your cell. 4-man cells. Kinross, and you can look this up. Kinross from 2010, 2011 was the deadliest prison in the whole Michigan Department of Corrections out of all 47 prisons at that time.
Yeah.
And that's by noted serious assaults. You know what I mean? So it was the deadliest prison. Every day, every yard, somebody got stabbed at Kinross. You know what I mean? Butchered.
Yeah.
Butchered. I stayed there 4 years, and 3 of those years I was the head of the vice lords. You know what I mean? So at a time where I'm at the most violent prison in the whole state of Michigan, I was the head of the vice lords there for 3 years, yo.
Explain maybe like some of the actual dealings where things popped up, like maybe like the first experience where things got a little messy.
That's easy. The first day I got there, the first day I got to Kinross, soon I never forget. As soon as I get off the bus, I get a call on the yard. I'm like, when the guys come in, he like, you got a dough call. I don't know him from the can of paint. He like, I'm like, who? He like you. I'm like, all right. You know what I mean? So a guy rolled in with, he looking at me like, oh, who you know here? I'm like, I don't know nobody here. He like, I'm gonna go out there with you. Now, dude I rolled in with, he had already been in prison. I heard him talking prison stories and stuff like that. He was just getting transferred to another facility. He wasn't going to his first facility. So he like, I'm gonna go out there with you. He was older than me. So I'm like, bet I felt a little more secure because I'm by myself. You know what I'm saying? So he like, I'm gonna go out there with you. So I get up, we in G unit. G unit is it's where the entry unit at. It's a open dorm setting. You know, this the only open dorm setting. G and H unit, G and F unit, the only open dorm setting. So we go out to the door. When we go out the door, it's this big old yard. I see all these different groups of people standing out, walking around, all the stuff like that. You know, I'll be honest, I didn't even want to go outside. I was just gonna sit in the unit until I figured everything out. You know what I mean? So when we hit the door, when I go out, I look out at all the groups of people walking by. I don't see nobody I'm familiar with. You know what I mean? So I turn around to go in. I'm like, they must have left. So I tell my mans. He like, all right, bet. So we go turn around. I hear somebody say, oh, Marty. So I'm like, that's a vice lord greeting. So I turn around. I see a guy throwing his hands up. So my man's like, all right, that's for you right there, right? I'm in my mind like, you better say that. I'll go back in. You feel me? So dog like motioned me to come down. So when I came down, it's me and bro. So when I come down, the individual who had called me down, his name Jay, or we call him Big Five. He did palms up. You know what I mean? And that's like it's a vice lord greeting. You know what I'm saying? A lot of Muslims do it as well. when he did pawns up, I greeted him back as well, pawns up. He like, oh, almighty. So him and the other guys that standing with him, there's like 6, 7 guys. They all standing, hands right over left. You know what I mean? Out of vice or stand, feet at a 45-degree angle. I'm looking at their clothes. I'm peeping out everything. They wearing black and gold, yellow. They wearing red and black. You know what I mean? Different. These vice or colors. So I knew, who they were. You know what I mean? So Big Five asked, oh boy, he was like, you peoples, yourself? You know what I'm saying? He like, no, I ain't gang banging, you know what I mean? He like, oh, he's straight. Go ahead on. So then dude looked at me, was like, all right, gave me a 5. And my mind, I'm like, damn, you just gonna let dude tell you I'm straight? I ain't tell you, you feel me? But anyway, he left, you know what I mean? I was just like, man. So then bro and I'm like, come on, let's walk. So I get kicking with him. I'm like, how y'all know that I was here? How y'all know I was here? He like, oh, one of the GDs told us. So that blew me. So I'm like, GD? I'm like, man, I know I wasn't talking to no GDs. When I was young, oftentimes, we think that GDs is our rivals, our enemies. You know what I mean? This is how I grew up, thinking that GDs and Crips was our enemies. You know what I mean? So when he said that the GD told him that I rolled in, I'm like, man, I know damn well I ain't talked to no GD. You know what I mean? So then I'm like, I ain't talking to no G. So then one of the other guys was like, oh no, one of the folks came and told us that you rolled in. I'm like, I know damn well I ain't talked to no GD. He like, no, you didn't. But when you was at your last spot, when we was at quarantine, he seen you rotating with some of the bros, and he came here and told us. And I thought to myself, like, that's strange. Why would he come and tell y'all I'm here? That's helping us out. You feel me?
Right.
And then he broke it down like, well, they do that in the joint. The reason why they do that because they don't want you to be false flagged, and they see you rotating with your guys at one joint, and if you go somewhere else and don't do the same thing, they gonna go tell them like, hey man, he one of y'all, he a vice lord, you know what I mean? And if you ain't legit, then you know what's gonna happen. They gonna get you out the yard, you know what I mean? So, I now I understand that, you know what I mean? But that day we walked off and walked the yard, and I ran into a brother named Keno. We ended up meeting a brother named Keno. Now Keno was from Chicago, and he come out, he see us politicking or whatever. So Keno pull up and holler at us like, hey man, I just got into it with this dude in the unit. I'm about to bang him out. You know what I mean? So, me being young, and young to prison, I'm not understanding the terminology, you know what I mean? So he like, I'm about to bang him out. I'm thinking, he about to bang. We grew up banging this fighting. He like, all right, bro. So me and the brothers that was together was like Big Five, like, all right, come on, I got you. I'm about to secure you. So he tell me, he like, oh, you want to see something? I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean? He like, bet, we about to go secure bro. So, I'm nervous, you know what I mean? But I'm not gonna say no, I don't want to see nothing, you know what I mean? Growing up in our culture, you can't be like, oh, I'm straight. I ain't, you know what I mean? So I wasn't expecting what I was gonna see though. When we got to walking around the big 40, the back 40 or whatever, that's what we call like the a portion of the yard, where the grass and everything around the track and the field. We walk, and Keno like, they go do it right there. You know what I mean? So Keno walks up, Big Five like, we're gonna secure you. He walks up, and I see him walking up behind this guy. Now this guy big as hell. Big black dude, bald head. I'm talking about muscles, crazy. So I see Keno walking up on him, so from behind though. And as he walking up on him, he take a step and he stop and he go down to his shoe. So I'm like, okay, he about to tie his shoe, and you don't want to, have his shoes not laced, about to fight. You fall about your shoes. That'd be a dumb way to get beat up. You know what I'm saying? But as I'm looking to see him tie his shoe, he go past his shoe and go down in his boot and pull out a shiny piece of steel. You know what I'm saying? So it's glaring off. I'm like, dang. I'm like, oh, he about to stab him. So now I'm really getting nervous because, he with us. You know what I'm saying? Now how we about to play this? He about to stab this guy. This what happens in prison. Yeah, people get stabbed, but you about to witness this. You know what I'm saying? So he walk up right up on dude from the back, take that knife, and Keno was like 6'3", like 200 some pounds. So he not no little dude. So man, he take that knife and swing it straight up on dude, bald headed. Soon as he hit that head, I'm talking about blood everywhere. You know what I mean? Dude turn around, backpedaling and trying to fight him, but it's really too much because Keno has stabbed him all in the face, stabbed him on, so dude fall back. Keno get on top of him, mounting him, stab him all in the face. Dude, you know, trying to like block him and all that stuff like that, you know, fighting all that. Keno stabbing him all in his arms. I'm probably like 6 feet away. He's stabbing him. So now at this point, he been stabbing him for like a whole minute. You know, we look up, we hear, hey. My COs, the correction officers, they see the commotion. They start running in the direction that we're at. So when they start coming over there, Big Five like throw the banger. You know what I mean? That's what they call, you know, knives and like it's a gun, something like throw the banger. So he yelling, tell him throw the knife or whatever. Keno blanked out. He's stabbing him. So this is the point where I'm like, hey, bro, they coming. You know what I mean? They 20 feet away. Now they pulling out, you know, tasers and all that. Disperse. Get, you know, they get the fuck away from, you know what I mean, all that stuff like that. So we have to move away from the incident, you know, where before we was going, you know, I guess initially the plan was to take the knife, you know, that he was stabbing with to get away. But Keno blacked out. He all the way to the police. The police tackled him while he was stabbing dude. That's how he blacked out. And it scared me, you know what I'm saying? Because I seen Keno's face and I knew what the play was. We supposed to help you get away, not, you know what I'm saying, get caught. You feel me? So they, you know, wrestle him to the ground, all that, his blood all over Keno. Dude is, I'm talking about leaking. I'm talking, you can actually see his flesh, you know what I'm saying, from gash wounds. He had a flat piece, sharpened flat piece. So, you know, every time he hit him, it's slicing him open. You know what I mean? So as we walking away, you know what I mean, I asked Big Five, I'm like, they taking Keno out of the police. They got him hemmed up. They, you know, walking him to the hole or whatever. I'm like, damn, you know, it's the first time I ever seen anything like this. You know what I mean? I'm like, what's gonna happen to bro? You know what I mean? He like, he'll be all right. He should do a knife. And when he said that, I'm like, damn, you. He's like that was just cold. He talking about he all right. You know what I mean? He like, I know he going to. I'm like, you going to the hole? He like, yeah. He like, they got the knife, so he probably get a new case. He probably get a new case. Probably go level 5, do a couple years in the hole. When he said it, it just was like business as usual. You know what I mean? Like he had seen it so many times, like it wasn't really nothing to him. You know what I mean? I was scared. You know what I'm saying? To be honest, bro, I never seen nothing like that. The dude that got stabbed up, he got stabbed up because he told Keno to suck his dick. You know what I'm saying? So in the joint or, you know, period, bro, you don't invite no man to your penis. You know what I mean? And in prison, you know, really guys stand on that. You know what I mean? Nah, really, Keno shouldn't even made it to the yard for real. Because now I know what I know now. Why you ain't take care of that in the unit? You know what I'm saying? Wherever it got violated, that's where you demonstrate. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, he banged him out good, bro. And you know, Keno ended up going level 5. He ended up going to the hole, sitting in the box for 2 years. He ended up getting charged with another case, got a serious assault. It was 4 years till I seen Keno, and that's when he just got out the hole. You know what I mean? But from that moment right there, I made my decision that I was gonna never be on the receiving end of an attack like that, and I was gonna be the one attacking.
So damn, so you, yeah, I see what you mean. Like seeing that at the level that it was like, yeah, I'm never gonna. So that actually turned you up.
Oh man, that turned me up, bro. Like that turned me up. Like I instantly, bro. I went to prison. I was 115 or maybe 120 pounds, man. I made it my business from that day that I was about to get in the weight pit. You know what I mean? Because everybody in prison big as hell. You know what I mean? I looked like a child compared to, you know, the guys on the yard or whatever. And I got a knife that day. You know what I mean? And it wasn't because I wanted one, because I needed it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But 19 years, I ain't, you know, stabbing nobody, like, you know what I mean? Like that, you know what I'm saying? That's crazy now. You know what I mean? But from that point on, I got me a knife. And then it's crazy because, you know, that put me at, you know, because you carrying a knife in prison, that's just like carrying a pistol in the streets. You get caught with that knife, That's 2 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Added on to your sentence. You know what I mean? So I already had a long time, nice amount of time to do, in the joint, they say anything over 5 years is, a nice bit. So,
Yeah.
I had some time to do.
For sure, for sure. So boom, fast forward, like, did you have to get active on the stabbing tip on the Kinross yard?
Oh yeah. I definitely did. Once I got my knife and once I got there, I seen how everything was going on. And me being a gang member in the gang at one of the most violent joints, I had to get my rep up. Cause what goes on in the streets, what you did in the streets, if you was a shooter in the streets, if you was getting money in the streets, all this stuff, none of that matter when you get to prison. You know what I mean? People, you gotta prove yourself. And I wasn't exempt, rank or whatever, you know what I mean? So I was involved in a few stabbings. I eventually became lieutenant on the yard for the vice swords, controlling the security and all that stuff like that. And we was on tip, we was taking hits, you know what I mean, putting hits on guys, all type of stuff like that.
So work out that process though. Like, is that for those who may not know, like taking hits, like no different than in the streets. You know what I mean? Like that's a hustle.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
That's like hustle. Like in prison, you can get somebody hit easily. It's so many people in prison, bro, that's broke, that don't have no money coming in, don't have family support. You know what I mean? Or they just shooters and they just don't care. You know what I mean? They don't care. You know what I mean? So it's guys that's in a joint. You got guys, that's real shooters that take hits. That's all they do. You put some money on the guy head, they come there. They don't care what you're a part of or whatever consequence. You know what I mean? They're gonna blow you up. You know what I mean, for that money.
So boom. So you say y'all taking hits, all type of stuff. Like work us through, like maybe, how y'all went about it. Like what was the procedure? Take a hit. The money had to hit the account first. Like what was that? And then explain one that you actually like was a part of.
Yeah. So we had an old head there with us, a Lord, Cap. You know what I'm saying? A good brother. He was with the shits. You know what I mean? I can't lie. You know what I mean? Older brother, but he was pushing that play. You know what I mean? And when it came to that money, you know what I mean? You got that money right. You had a lot of vice swords that was willing to take that money, and he was sending them. You know what I mean? So you had guys from different organizations. You know what I mean? When you went in prison, the climate is you're supposed to take care of your own. You know what I'm saying? So if you a GD, you're supposed to get one of your own GD guys off the yard if he, violate, or if you a Melanic, or if you a more, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But sometimes and oftentimes a lot of people don't want to get their hands dirty, you know what I mean? Or want to set a play down, you know what I mean? Where it don't look like it's coming from their own body, you know what I mean? So they outsource the work. You know what I mean? And the vice swords was one of the main individuals that was at Kinross at that time throughout that daily stretch of years that was taking a lot of those hits. You know what I mean? Me personally, I was involved in one. It was a hit on a guy. Me and the brother rolled out on the mission up in A unit, went up in there, and A unit at Kinross was a different type of unit, because A unit was where the hole was at, and it only had one floor that was like, I think maybe 2 floors that was like general population. But the down floors was all the whole. That's where the whole unit was a whole. And we went up in there, and I never forget the guy, because it was a 4-man sales. The guy who was wanted to go hit, his bunkie was the one setting him up. He just wanted him out the cell. So the guy really didn't do nothing serious. Like, he didn't tell on nobody. He didn't hurt none of this guy's family in the streets and nothing like that. He simply just wanted the guy out of his cell. You know what I mean? So he was willing to pay a few $100s for some guys to come up in there and, stab dude up. You know what I mean? Not, to kill him, but just stab him enough for him to bleed out. Had to go to medical, get sent to another facility. So we went up in there and caught dog in the bathroom. You know what I mean? While he was taking a piss. You know what I mean? Stabbed him up, poked him up real good, ran up out of there. You know what I mean? Left him leaking. Yeah.
So if I can, like, cause I really wanna, as you walk into them, like what kind of piece do you got? And like, where are you targeting and aiming, or are you just like, I'm gonna just hit wherever I'm gonna hit? So, because for some people, not to cut you off, like as time go on and people get experienced, you know, and for the record, I do want to make this clear because the latter part of these segments and interviews that we do, people gonna also hear a completely different side as well. But this is to lay the base to get people to understand your life, the experiences, the up close and personal, you know, things that you've experienced, you know, and your, you know, in your life or whatever. So I do want to make it clear that we are not glorifying it, you know what I mean? But this is this man's story. And in order for you to respect and fully understand why he chose to, you know, be on a mission that he's on right now, you have to understand exactly what he's been through. So
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because the man I was yesterday is not the man I am today.
So
But those experiences that, you know, those experiences made me who I am. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, like, so I walk up on a guy, man, so when you're in prison, and when you in a gang, we already talked about certain things. They teach you how to stab people in the joint.
that was like part I wanted to get to. Yeah.
So like I went through a training in prison, to learn how to stab. And it was taught by the other vice lords, people that was known shooters for the nation, for the vice lord nation. And that training consists of getting a mat off your bunk, the bed that we sleep on. You get that off your bunk and you put that up on the wall, and you get your knife, and they show you how to hold your knife positioned in your hand, so that because when you stab somebody, you're not just going to go stab somebody, you fighting as well, because somebody trying to defend themselves. So you had to understand and know how to fight with the knife in your hand. You know what I mean? So you stabbing, you learning how to stab, you learn how to hold position knife, at the same time fighting, all that stuff like that. So I went through the training to learn how to be a shooter. And then experiences taught me how to hone in on the experiences, tighten up or whatever. But yeah, so after I learned how to stab, then I went in there with the brother D from the Muskegon, and he threw the first swing, and he went straight for dude neck. You know what I mean? And at this time, he had a ice pick. That's what they call ice pick, So it was basically a sharpened piece of metal or steel that kind of put you in a mind like a pen or something, or sharpened to a point, like a needle pointing. And he stabbed dog in the neck. As soon as I seen that, I just came right behind him, got to stab and do it all up in the face. I had a flat piece at this time. My flat piece, even I had a name for it because I had it for so long, and it was like special. We had like 29s. Vice Lords had like 29s collectively, but this was my particular knife that I owned and I claimed and said, don't nobody touch my knife. You know what I mean? And it was called Black Beauty. You know what I mean? It was a black piece of metal that was broken and formed off of a leg brace. It was a leg brace. The leg brace got the metal rod going through the side, and we broke the metal rod on the side and took it over to the factory and fashioned it, to make a nice little, like a 8-inch, fat piece of metal or whatever. So Black Beauty, I hit dude with Black Beauty, dude split open, you know what I mean? Instantly, he backpedaling because he was at the pistol, so we were trying to piss. So he backpedaling and we on him, stabbed him all up. Now people coming out of the toilet because when the stabbing go on, people trying to get away.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They don't want to be
They don't want to be involved. Yeah. They don't want to get caught up. They don't want to listen.
Yeah.
Get stabbed.
Right.
That happens. You know what I mean? You don't want to be a witness to nothing. You know what I'm saying? So when that took place, people jumping up out the stall. I can see people jumping up out the stalls, just busting up out of there. You know what I mean? And the guy that we were stabbing, he was trying to call us for help. You know what I mean? Help! Hey, stab me! Hey! We shut up. You know what I mean? Hitting him, and you know what I mean? And bro knocked him out. You know what I mean? And when bro knocked him out, I just went on and stabbed him up in the face a couple times more, and we left up out of there. And he was in a pool of blood.
So in terms of like even getting away, because stabbing is the first part, but actually getting away, and then, cameras and stuff like that. If I ain't mistaken, Kinross probably was a little different because it was so big camera wise. I don't think it's.
No, Kinross was one of them rare joints where they didn't have cameras in the hallway.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that accounted for a lot of the violence that was there because a lot of people was getting away.
Yeah.
And there's so many blind spots, and Kinross so big, you're talking about a facility that's miles long. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you can be at Kinross for a whole year and never even know that, I'm here with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how, you gonna go about your day. I'm gonna go about my day. I'm in a different unit. I got my own schedule. You got your own schedule. But if y'all never meet up on the yard at the same time in the same area, then you wouldn't even know this person was here. So yeah, it's a lot of violence going on there.
So was that your first one, or you actually had a stabbing before that?
No, that was my, I think that was my first stabbing. Yep, that was my first stabbing.
All together, if you was to say like how many roughly that you had, like how many stabbings did you have?
That I personally did?
Yeah. And then collectively that you may have sent out or witnessed.
So I stabbed personally about, I want to say about 5 people. Five different instances where I had to stab somebody. And collectively, I couldn't tell you because over the years in prison, it was a lot of incidents that took place. More stuff had to be done, and I had to get an order to have stuff done. So I don't know. I couldn't even tell you, bro. Over to 20.
In terms of other organizations, did you ever experience like tensions where y'all had to go to war with other people?
Oh yeah. That's actually how I got stabbed. It was at Kinross. I was the head of the yard. The chief or the vice was on the yard, and it went up. It went up with some guys who called themselves the Royal Gangsters. They was folks. We aligned themselves with the Folk Nation. I'm the 6-point star. But they created that gang there. It was like ex-GDs, ex-Spanish Cobras, ex-Latin folks, MLDs. And they came together and they linked up with the G's or whatever. At that time, we had a good relationship with the G's. But they ended up stabbing up one of the I think the brother was a Moor. They ended up stabbing one of the Moors. And as a whole, just in Michigan, because a lot of them was European and Spanish stuff. Most of them was white though. When they did that, it went up. Guys weren't feeling that, because they was taking hits. So when they stabbed dude, it was a white guy taking a hit on a brother. You know what I mean? So the lines became blurred with the gangs and the religions, because in Michigan as a whole, it's a black thing. You know what I mean? So being that we was like on the forefront of all the violence, and at the same time, I attended, the Nation of Islam service, and my second in command at that time, D Green, he was a Moor. You know what I mean? So when they stabbed up one of the Moors, we just like, all of them gotta go, because they had already stabbed up a few different individuals, and it brought attention to the yard. And now they was like really letting their nuts hang, like, oh, we just stabbing more vice. We said, what's next? Y'all gonna stab a vice lord? You know what I mean? So we went on, and after I made that call to get all of them gone, execute justice, we ran up in all their units, stabbed every last one of them. That first incident when it took place, it was 8 of them. We stabbed every last one of them. We had some of the guys before the yard. I gave the order, but this was at night yard. I gave the order when morning yard come open, everybody be outside in their blues and state shoes, and we going to go get every last one of them. So when the yard opened in that morning, as soon as yard opened, all the vice lords was on the yard, and other people had got word too. But all the vice lords was on the yard with their knives ready to go, and that's what we did. We went and stabbed up all them guys, man. Throughout the melee, I got stabbed. Actually, I got stabbed twice. But this one right here in my wrist was by friendly fire. So so one of the guys we were stabbing, there was two of us on one of the guys. So I'm stabbing the guy all in the head, in the face, and the neck. And one of the guys, he's stabbing him too, same place. And once he go stab him one time, his knife went in my hand. You know what I mean? I didn't even know that I got stabbed until afterwards. And that's when I'm in the unit, you know, cause I broke my hand on my left hand. You know what I mean? So I broke my hand on my left hand. It's the first time I ever broke a bone.
Oh, that, and then that
From that incident, you know, so when I came in, this was apparent. So when I went in a unit to change out my clothes, take out the state clothes and put on personal clothes, that's when I noticed the blood coming from, you know, here. And I had a gash in my back, and that was from one of the ops.
And you didn't even know that?
I didn't even know I got stabbed. I didn't know I got stabbed at all, period. Only thing I knew, my hand was broke because I felt that and I could see that. But once I got the change and everything, then that's when I know that I was stabbed, you know, a couple times.
That's a tricky situation, because oftentimes when stabbings happen, that's the first thing that, you know, officers kind of ask for is, let me see your hands.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So what happened was, I had to wait the next day, fake like I was on the basketball court and I failed. So when I cause I had the stabbings, I had one of the Latin Count brothers stitch my wound up right here. So I wasn't worried about the stabbing and stuff like that. This was real deep. The one on my back was just like a slice. So I let that heal. But my broken bone needed medical attention. So all the basically everybody under 5 Latin Kings, the Bloods, Lords, all went on the basketball court, because we do like unity days and stuff like that. So we went all on the basketball court after we had a meeting to let them know what was going on, that I need to go to medical. But we didn't want me to get locked up, because if you go for medical attention and they determine that it's through an assault or a fight, then it automatically put you in the hole for your safety. So to circumvent that whole process, I acted like I fell on the basketball court hooping and broke my arm, broke my hand, and that's how I went to medical and was able to get the medical attention I needed.
So then, boom, you get back on the yard at the time, everything cool.
Gas and everything, yep.
Yeah, man. So, after that, just leading up into, I guess I would say, because even when I first met you on the Newberry yard, like, bro, I think it was damn near immediately when you hit the yard, like you had to put a demonstration down.
Yeah. So when we met at Newberry, I was just coming from Kinross. And see, I was under the impression that Kinross, the way that people was at Kinross, it was like that everywhere. You know what I mean? As far as violence wise, people being quick to stab people, you know what I mean? All that stuff like that. And it wasn't really like that. You was on,
It's like you was on maniac time.
so I came over there on some demon time, and people weren't really they weren't used to that. But I knew it though. Once I stabbed somebody on the yard, and then you know, I butchered them, you know, bad, you know, in front of everybody, right in the middle of the yard. You know what I mean? I think he was right there, and then afterwards, you know, I go in, you know, I pass off the knife and all that stuff like that. And I'm in the unit chilling, you know, I ain't get caught. So I'm in the unit chilling, and, you know, people just coming up to me and being extra nice. And I just got there. I was there for like 3 or 4 days, and people just coming up to me extra nice, like, what's up, bro? You good? You need anything? And I'm like, no, I'm straight. I'm good. You know, they were like, when I seen the demonstration you laid down, boy, you out cold, boy. You ain't playing, is you? You know what I mean? And, you know, I was disrespected, because in the joint, it's like, when you see something, you don't speak on it. You know what I mean? So now, you know, it alarmed me, because I'm like, damn, you like the police. You know what I mean? Because you letting me know that you aware of what's going on.
Right.
So if I go down, now I'm stabbing you, I'm having my bro stab you, because why is you talking about this?
Yeah.
If you're talking about it to me, I know you're talking about it to somebody else. You know what I mean? So that's like the gang in jail culture or whatever, you know. So that kind of threw me for a loop right there. Then I eventually end up getting into some stuff and taking care of some stuff, or having somebody take care of some stuff. And the sergeant at that time at Newberry, they called him Scarface. He had a big scar on his face, because years prior, the story was some Atlantics You know what I mean? You know, they stabbed him up real good back at Earth or whatever. So they used to call him Scarface, and he had this real tough disposition. You remember him?
Yep.
You know, every time you come to Child Hall, he cutting into you raw and all that stuff like that. But anyways, he came, pulled me off the yard, and he was like, I'm sending you to Earth. You know what I mean? Threw me in the hole, sent me to Earth on the NOI, because he said I couldn't be at that yard.
Yeah. So word definitely got back to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you was coming with a whole different type of program.
Yeah.
Even though it was things that was going on, you know, you came at a time really where things was like kind of flipping over because it was a level 2 at first, and then they end up taking it to
I was in the process of switching over. It was getting all the level 2 guys.
Yep.
And it was sending me there to waive me from a level 2
To a level
1. It was a lot of us there, even though that we was still level 2.
Yeah.
You know, we were still supposed to be in medium or close security.
Yeah.
They was waiving us because the joint, they needed to switch the joint around. They were just switching joints around. So, you know, guys who really wasn't supposed to be in a level 1 was going to a level 1.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and it wasn't. And level 1, it was so different there at Newberry because everything was so open. You know what I mean? And in level 1, you know, people was less guarded. You know what I mean? You know, it's not lifers there, so you gel in a different way. But where I just came from for the last 4 years, around all lifers,
Yeah.
at the most violent prison in Michigan, you know, this became my environment. You know, yeah.
So at this point, in terms of rank, you know, like by the time you at Newberry, and then of course get, you know, until you get out and stuff like that, like what would you describe your rank as then? You know, because obviously you done did more things. Not only did you have the reputation from the streets, you know what I mean, but now you got the physical, quote unquote, for the lack of better words, accolades and gang culture.
So ranking wise, I was a 3-star Universal Elite. I was the second highest ranking insane vice lord in the Michigan Department of Corrections that was being recognized through the AVLE in the streets of Michigan. You know what I mean?
Now, if you can, you don't have to, but if it is possible, could you break down like AVLN and like can you break that down?
Okay, so the AVLN is the Almighty Vice Lord Nation. The AVLN, then you have particular branches. So to be a Vice Lord, you have to be under one of these particular branches. In the beginning, it was all one branch. It was Conservative Vice Lords back when it was in the grassroots era, when Vice Lords was incorporated and received funding through the federal government, like the Rockefeller Fund and stuff like that. But you have the AVLN, which is the Almighty Vice Lord Nations, the branches, which will be the Conservative Vice Lords, the Traveling Vice Lords, the Unknown Vice Lords, the Insane Vice Lords, which I was a part of, the 4.0 Vice Lords. Each branch, you got particular decks or areas where brothers be and that sort. So the particular deck that I was blessed under was an Insane Schoolyard. And the Insane Schoolyard was the best and biggest Insane Vice Lord deck in the state of Michigan. Understand, Insane Vice Lords are the most popular or most populated in the state of Michigan. 9 times out of 10, all the Vice Lords you're going to ever meet in Michigan are IVL. You know, 90% of all Vice Lords here are IVL. And that's the branch that I was a part of.
And you said out of that branch, you were the what?
I was the 3-star Universal Elite. So in prison, while I was in prison, there was one person over me. He was the 5-star Universal. Yeah.
Did you ever make it to 5-star, like just throughout your time period?
Yeah, nope. So the highest rank I achieved was a 3-star Universal Elite. But I also was the leader and creator of my own deck, which is a 9 squad. Yep.
So how was you able to branch off and create your own deck coming from, like, how was that possible?
So the deck I was put down under was Insane Schoolyard. I was able to create my own deck through the permission of the chief of all the Vice Lords to expand, because so what took place was while I was in prison, understanding I was guiding so many brothers back home either connecting them to the streets with the bros or physically sending them to go rotate, and, draw up with the brothers or whatever. So it was so many guys that was coming home from prison that I was putting down that it kind of wasn't meshing well with the guys that was already in the streets. And the reason why, because when you come home from prison, you got a different mind state. You know what I mean? Irregardless if you in a gang or not. Coming home from prison, your main focus is getting reintegrated back in society, getting back reestablished with your family, getting a job and all the things that you missed for so many years. Yeah, that's what your main focus is. Even if you were part of a gang or a street organization, you know what I mean? You're trying to get off parole and not go back to prison. Oftentimes the people that's in the gangs and the streets, they throwing rocks at prison.
I see exactly where you're going with it. So basically your idea of creating a new deck was specifically tailor-made for people that was coming home, that was vice lords, to create a culture that you felt was beneficial for them coming home.
Correct. While I was incarcerated, I came in the knowledge of the truth and fruitful teachings of vice lords. So the way I thought about vice lords became a little differently, you know what I mean? And just as I matured, in prison, coming to different schools of thoughts and different wealths of knowledge, you know what I mean? Myself mentally, I, elevated. So when I got to teaching the brothers and stuff like that, I came from a different perspective than that of when I was 16, 17 years old, gang banging, not understanding, the goals and everything like that.
At what point did that begin to shift? Because like, even what you saying, you was attending Nation of Islam service, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of similarities, in terms of, vice lords and the Nation of Islam, even with, palms, palms up or whatever. And, just justice, freedom, what I mean? All of those different things. Like, at what point did you realize, like, hey, man, it's time to evolve, and you begin to realize, like, your mental shift taking place?
So I was able to get in contact with the Nation of Islam so easy because one of the FOI, the Nation of Islam brothers, they seen some promise in me and, pull me to them, you know what I mean? Irregardless of me running a gang on my own, they like, brother, you have potential, you know what I mean? You could do more. Now, come on over here to service. You can continue to be a vice lord, whatever. Just come over here and hear what we got to say. I was receptive to it because the vice lord literature is Islamic. Vice lord literature comes from both out the Bible and the Quran, and there are some that don't come from any holy books, but vice lords literature and lordism favor the Holy Quran. So it was easy for me to be susceptible to Islam being a vice lord. But once I came over to the Nation of Islam, even though they said, oh, you can come as you are, you can be a vice lord, once you start learning certain things, you're going to start thinking different, you know what I mean? And that would kind of change my perception about vice lord too, because even though I came to prison and started learning about vice lords more, once I started learning about the Nation of Islam and teaching the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it, strengthened me, mentally to be able to even look at vice lords differently.
Yeah, and that's the beauty too. Like, even with like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his messages, he doesn't necessarily shy away from gang culture. He actually embraces it.
Oh yeah.
And allows you to pull out principles and different things that you probably wouldn't notice. So I could kind of understand how being over there could even cause you to look at, the Vice Lord Nation a little bit different as well.
Yeah, because you gotta think these groups, the Nation of Islam, the Vice Lords, the Nation of Islam has been able to, continue to, keep its, name and, just in good standings. But Vice Lords is one of the groups that's just fell victim to, Contelpro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The counterintelligence program. J. Edgar Hoover was the director of the FBI, created this program to stop the rise of a black messiah. That was the program's mission, and, those people that was targeted by J. Edgar Hoover was Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Jeff Fort, you know what I mean, with the Black P-Stones,
Yeah.
the Black Panthers and stuff like that.
Hoover.
Larry Hoover, you know what I mean? We see what happened with Larry Hoover, and the Viceroys wasn't exempt.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So when Viceroys was in good standings with the government, because Viceroys used to receive federal funding to create businesses, to have educational programs, and all that stuff like that, because it was a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The government was seeing what's going on with the Black Panthers and such, and they couldn't have these different groups, Black groups, receiving money, taking care of their neighborhoods, feeding them and stuff like that, because that was taking root. So many different organizations was doing it. So Jericho Hoover made sure that these groups that was polarizing our people and captivating them, and accepting their membership could fall. And they Viceroys was the same. You know what I mean? You had double agents, and you had individuals and some niggas, you know what I mean? Because you always got some individuals that's a part of a good organization that's there to bring it down with unvisual selfish reasons or whatever. But you had these individuals who was able to get into this group and these other groups to bring them down from within. You know what I mean? That's to create funds. You know what I mean? Create instances where it brought attention from the government.
100%, 100%. So, boom, you got this new understanding. You start a new deck. Now let's just fast forward to you on your way home. Boom. Now you come home, right? Now this is a new chapter, right? And I'm just saying this in context of what we talking about, because now we going into a new phase of your journey. But so boom, new chapter. You would think, and then it's everybody hopes like, I ain't going back to prison. This is it, but after this, now it's a federal indictment, like probably one of the largest federal indictments in Michigan, right? Before we go into the actual indictment, in which we probably gonna do a whole nother one with this, right? Talk about, obviously you come home, you link with the brothers, but you also doing business. That's when you started your brand, as you can see with the hat, Put Your People On. You start that, you doing good for yourself, but also like, what is like your relationship with the brothers and Nine Squad, and like how that whole thing coming about?
Yeah, so when I came home April 19, 2016, as I served my time. I came home, I had parole to do. I had 2 years parole to do. Once I came home, man, after doing so much time, almost 10 years in prison, I did not want to go back to prison. All the things that I had to do while I was in prison, I had to do it. The stabbings and everything like that, that came with being a member of the gang and accepting the gang life and accepting me wanting to, rise up in ranks and, all that. So a lot came with that. But that created a lot of, sleepless nights. You know what I'm saying? I carried a lot with that. So I wanted to change my life around. And then just me coming to a greater understanding of vice lord history and the concepts of vice lord, and at the same time coming in contact with the teachings of the Nation of Islam, I really wanted to just be a better man for myself and for my community. So when I came home from prison, initially I stayed away from the brothers, you know what I mean, from the vice lord brothers, just to make sure that I didn't violate parole or go back to prison and all that stuff like that. So I for a while I stayed away, and I went and got a job. Obviously, got married.
Getting that good money, cutting them trees down. I remember that.
Yeah, I was working for the city of Detroit. I was working for the city of Detroit for 3.5 years as a certified tree artisan. I worked on the east side and I worked on the west side, cutting trees down, trimming trees, making the city beautiful. But throughout that process, even before I got the job working for the city of Detroit, I got back with the brothers, you know what I mean, with the Lords, and it was just missing and being around that brotherhood, you know what I mean. I was getting my life together, I had, got my life together, attain assets and all that stuff like that. And I just was still missing something. I was yearning for that brotherhood love. You know what I mean?
And was it pulling on you in terms of people calling, bro, what's up, bro?
Yeah.
Like, cause I want people to understand, it's a lot of people that's gonna be watching this that's currently in gang culture or coming home that's trying to figure out how to navigate that space. And so I just kind of want to hit those details. You get what I'm saying?
And home, and I told God, man, I'm about to get myself together. You know what I mean? I'm about to focus on me. I ain't about to go be no gang, means no none of that management. I'm the head of my own particular deck. At this time, I got somebody else running it. You know what I mean? And that was what it was. He was the running. But I'm the chief, so everybody was mad. Essentially, you know what I mean? You had guys that say, "Oh, get yourself together, get yourself," but they don't want to hear it. Don't nobody want to hear about you getting yourself together. Everybody want to be selfish. Why you can't be with me? Why my bro can't be over here? Oh, this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? So didn't nobody truly care about me getting myself together personally. You know what I mean? And then I honestly missed the money, power, respect, NPR. You know what I mean? All right, heavy as the head. A lot comes with it. It's a lot of things that you would think is good that you will miss. You know what I mean? People referring to you, as chief or big bro or treating you as such. You know what I mean? Because, you a gang leader, people treat you like you a god. You know what I mean? They tailor to everything you want and do. You know what I mean? They going to treat you a certain way. They're going to talk to you a certain way. They're going to buy you things. You know what I mean? And try to be in your favor at all times. You know what I mean?
So was it like even in hitting on that, like on a personal level, like was it like, so basically you saying it was some like insecurities within yourself that made you yearn for that power and that,
So after doing my 8 years in prison, I had raised myself up mentally, spiritually, and physically, but yet and still, I was missing that. I was missing what I have now. You know what I mean? And now I have reassurance of myself in its whole totality. You know what I mean? But when you still trying to find yourself, and before you get to that moment where you're actually, self-sufficient in your own emotions and your own, ways, then you're going to always look for something outside of you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But until you be sure of yourself in the whole as an individual, everything within is sufficient. You don't need an outside source to validate who you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I was yearning for that. I was yearning for that. And I went back and I found that. And I went back and I got back in tune with my brothers, continued to run the squad and blew it up. So when I was in prison, when I started Nine Squad in prison, March 8th, 2014 at Carson City. And like I say, the purpose of it was to build onto what I already was a part of with Schoolyard, and to branch off and to be able to have a home for the brothers that I was sending home actually to the streets. And at Carson City, when I started Nine Squad, I said it's going to be the biggest and the best Vice Lord deck here in Detroit. You know what I mean? And that's what I ended up doing. You know what I mean? So when I came home and I got back amongst the brothers, we got the fan ball rolling, and we got all the money. You know what I mean? Everybody who was into whatever, the guys that's on the drug tip, the guys that's on the scamming tip. You know what I mean? I assisted them in every way I could, and Nine Squad had became the biggest and the best deck of vice lords in the state of Michigan.
Man, that's something too, bro. Like your organization skills has always been supreme. You know what I mean? Always dealing, bro. Like you always had this, wit, you know what I mean? And charm. Like even when we linked, you know what I mean? Like at that point in time, I was head of the Nation of Islam at that point in time, and we had, certain conversations as well, you know what I mean? And I won't elaborate. I remember we was in the visiting room and you had asked me a question at one time. We ain't gonna
Let's talk about
you feel me?
Yeah.
But even with that being said though, like I could see how when you approach a person and have a conversation with a person that it'll make them be like, damn, man, I want to see what this, I want to see what this be like.
About fear. For sure, for sure. That's definitely been a gift of mine. You know what I mean? Being able to convey a message. You know what I mean? Understand who the person is I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? Organization skills, just leadership skills in general. So yeah, that's always been a strength of mine.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that finance part, right? Where you say, okay, you got this group of people drugs, scam, or whatever the case may be. Like, do they all got to kick in a certain percentage? Like, how is you monetarily building up? Like, is everybody eating? Like, how is this looking and beneficial for you? Let's just say, how is it beneficial for you?
Okay, so yeah, Vice Lords is just like any other business, has an organizational structure. It's like any Fortune 500 company. You got a secretary, you got a treasurer, you got somebody that's in charge of all the bookkeeping. You know what I mean, and somebody's in charge of the physical aspect. The protection and security and stuff like that. And it's the same thing within non-scribe, the same thing within Vice Lord. You got treasurers or whatever, but every Vice Lord pays dues.
Yeah.
Every Vice Lord pays dues, got to kick down to the treasurer. You know what I mean? And those dues vary into who you are and what you're doing. You know what I mean? So yeah, everybody kicked down to me, and I collected dues, and I did what I felt was necessary for the mob with the money.
Which was like, what was some of the things that you felt like was beneficial, like for the group?
So like one of the most things that we do, we send money back to the bros that's in the joint. You know what I mean? What a lot of people don't do. You know what I mean? But that's something that I stood on. I always send money back to the guys in the joint, which was part of the reason how they was able to catch me up later on down the line when I got indicted. Paper trail and all that. That's something that people got to be mindful too. But yeah, sending money back to the joint, lawyers and stuff like that. Obviously, household stuff. So we own houses. Well, we owned houses and bought houses, and we rented houses. So we had houses on different sides of the city, and even on the outskirts where we, stash houses and where we held meetings at, where we hold our meetings and our goals at, where we keep guns and all that stuff like that. Brother needs a place to go. We got houses and things of that nature. That's what we did with our money, and we celebrated too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, leading up to the indictment, man, if you can, let the people know exactly what you got in, what was the charges of your indictment and the history connecting to like how he was this indictment was.
So even before I'm going to say this, even before I was indicted for my RICO charge, I had a lot going on. I was mentally growing, so I was kind of moving away from the gang banging aspect, understanding the time and what was going on. I was a father, single father, taking care of my child who I got custody of, joint custody of, as well as I'm a business owner. I got a physical store right here inside the Greenfield Plaza. This is my home right here. I got a store. I'm involved in the community. I link with a community leader by the name of Ray Winans, who was pulling together all the gang members in the city. This before like the CVI groups that's going on now with like Newberry and all that stuff like that. Was getting funding to do what they're doing. Ray Winans was like getting gang leaders together and just trying to like stop the violence with us, and not like involve the police and all this stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just get the OGs together in a sense, and the OVs or whatever, the old heads or the lords or whatever. So he, reached out to me through one of the brothers, Sino, reached out to me and I began working with him to talk about, how to bring the violence down in the community and stuff like that. So my heart and my mind was changing when it came to how I dealt with Vice Lords.
Yeah.
So I was essentially letting the chain of command run itself while I was focused more on my son and business and everything like that. I wasn't selling drugs. I wasn't promoting selling drugs. And then, I'm coming from a performance. I'm coming from a performance with my brand ambassador, Eastside Egg Roll. Shout out to Egg Roll. We was coming from a performance. Me, my older brother Stefan, Sino, Straps. A couple of brothers ride with me. They on security, and I come back from performance with the guys at the strip club. I go to my girl's house, out the way, in the burbs, and 3 hours. I get home three in the morning, and 3 hours later, the feds, the U.S. Marshals, ATF, everybody, kicking in the door. Yep.
If I can too, before we get into that, because it also just to go into just the level of how would I say, just the level of just tense things that just transpired, you know what I mean, with everything that you've been through. Before the indictment, did you get shot before the indictment, or was that how did that go?
Yeah, so when I got shot,
And if you can just run us through, like, elaborate on what you can in that regard.
okay. So no, I got shot before I was indicted. I was indicted June 3rd, 2021. I was shot, I got shot up the day before Thanksgiving 2018. Real quick, and which was a month after my sister's murder. So my sister was carjacked and murdered. And a month later, I was at one of my brother's houses, one of my bros, one of my vice lord brothers' houses, and people knock at the door or whatever. I'm sitting there, I'm on my phone or whatever. Like, he don't sell drugs there, nothing like that. So I'm not thinking that it's some type of beef gonna come there. You know what I mean? To be honest, had just like been a spot where you sold drugs, I wouldn't sit there because I don't sit in spots. You know what I mean? I ain't one of them. So, but anyway, guy knock at the door or whatever. Boom, boom. Detroit police open up. I'm on the phone. I hear it. I'm sitting by the big picture window. So, when I hear it, I'm thinking it's some of the guys, playing. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not going at his house. He don't sell no dope or nothing like that. So, I didn't think, it was gonna be the actual police or whatever. So I'm thinking playing. So I ain't thinking nothing of it. Long story short, he ain't opened up the door because they got masks on. You know what I mean? And this nighttime, you looking out, you can't really see. I was like, man, stop playing. You know what I mean? I look up, he like going for the door, like he just might open it, and they get to shooting through the door. You know what I mean? I see bullets blast off through the door and wood chips, flying off. I see the bullet, he ducked. I don't know if he got hit or not. You know what I mean? So he's like, oh, so bullets rang out, and he got, his kids right there or whatever. So before, I could, jump down and kind of shield children from, bullets, bullets start coming through the window. Bam, I get hit. You know what I mean? So when I get hit, I feel like I thought I got shot in my head, because that's what I feel like. Somebody's like stood over me with like a metal baseball bat and just, you know what I mean, hit me upside my head with a metal and like went inside my head and left it in there. It just felt like it was just all exposed. So after I get hit, bullets still coming through. So I'm like, oh, they shooting this bitch up. You know what I mean? So I, go into survival mode. I jump down on the ground. I'm trying to crawl away from the windows because, at this point, the house getting shot up. So I'm trying to crawl away and follow them. He took his baby mom and the kid. They done ran in the back, got in the tub and stuff like that. The house still being shot up. So I'm crawling up the hallway, and I get over to the kitchen. And when I get to the kitchen, I couldn't make it to the back hallway because I feel tired already. You know what I mean? So now I'm seeing the blood. So I crawl into the kitchen. I go on my stomach, and I got my face down on the floor or whatever. And I got my face on the cold floor, and I'm just breathing, and blood is coming out of my mouth. It's coming out of my nose. I'm trying to keep my mouth open and breathe, not choke on no blood. So I never been shot before. So my mom's like, man, just stay calm. You know what I mean? So as I'm sitting there, I'm just breathing. So then bro, baby mama come walk up the hall, like, no, before that, bro come back up to the front with an AR and get to shooting all boom, 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 boom. I hear him shooting boom, 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 boom. So this scaring me too, because every shot that goes through, I'm thinking I'm gonna get hit again. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know if they that came in the house, you know what I'm saying? Is this what's going on? Is he getting shot up? I don't know. You know what I mean? Mind you, I'm shot in the head on the ground. You know what I mean? Bleeding out. So every time a shot rang out, he's shooting. He got an AR. He's shooting. Every time I'm, flinching because I'm bracing for a hit or from ricochet or anything. You know what I mean? So while this take place, bro, baby mama, creep up the hallway. So I'm looking where I'm looking. I'm positioned where I'm looking directly out the hallway. So his baby mama creep up. Oh my God, Tess. So she see me, so I felt relief because I'm like, now they know I'm shot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I have to get help. You know what I'm saying? And so, but she threw me when she ran to me, grabbed my hand. Oh my God, I'm not gonna let you die by yourself. What? You know what I'm saying? At this time, I never even thought I was gonna die. You know what I mean? I just
thought it was going.
Yeah, I'm gonna be good. You feel me? So, but her reaction let me know that it was more serious than what it was. So she, oh my God, you're not gonna die. You're not gonna die. So I look down at the floor at this time, blood just pulling around my head. You know what I mean? Just pulling around my head. And she's like, don't die, don't die. Just hold. I'm gonna stay right here with you. I'm gonna stay right here with you. So as she's saying that, bro come back to the hall, and I look at his face. He went from, you know what I mean, like an angry, protective lion, you know what I mean, protecting his house. He
just got through.
Because he just got through, you know what I'm saying, chopping, to his hands went over his face. Oh my God, Tess. You know what I mean? And that's when I'm like, oh my God, it's bad. You know what I'm saying? It's bad. I felt a tear come down my face, and all I was like, man, call my mama. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, call my mama. I mean, because it spooked me to think that, I can die right here. And really, I was a mile away. I'm in my neighborhood. This happened in my neighborhood, right on the Quinder, or 7 Mile. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just spooked me to think that I could die right here and my people not know what's going on. You know what I mean? And then I just lost my sister, you know what I'm saying, a month prior, you know what I mean? Now it's like my light flashed from my eyes. So.
If you can, and of course we're gonna jump back to that specific point, but before, without going into details or anything like that, but still just the scenario or situation in terms of your sister, anything that you can speak on in that regard, like talk about like how your sister ended up passing a month before you got shot.
Yeah. So my sister, Starkeisha Thompson, was carjacked. Her and her boyfriend was like right off Kelly, off Harper Woods, and was carjacked by a gang member, Blood God, who, wanted their cars. It was in a Scat Pack, a Challenger. It was 2018. Scat Packs just came out. You know what I mean? Challengers was, so how people view them cars. My sister, she's not a gang member. You know what I mean? Never committed. Never was convicted of any charges. Not no felon, nothing. She was a civilian. A single mother. You know what I mean? Was in the nursing field. And who owned all their own stuff. You know what I mean? Worked hard for what she got and like nice things. With a guy, the lame, decided he wanted to carjack my sister. And she gave the car up, you know what I mean, willingly. And my sister got a CPL. She had her gun on her at the time. I asked her why she ain't, shoot the guy. Afterwards, she said because he only wanted the car. So she gave him the car. Being she had her CPL, she could have killed him. You know what I mean? But that's just not the person that she is. If she felt that he wanted to truly do some harm, then she would have killed dude. But the guy get away with the car that she gave him. She go in and, she, report the car stolen, the carjacked and all that stuff like that. The individual who carjacked my sister was found in the car the very next day. this dude, he driving the car with the gun. You know what I mean? So they lock him up. So the detective, called my sister. They know, hey, we found your car, la 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 la, whatever. You know what I mean? So she like, okay, do that. You need my car, or whatever. So he's, really like, okay, yeah. So now it's a process. We need you to come and testify. Write a statement. As to what happened. So we can prosecute this guy and all this stuff like that. Well, my sister, she really just wanted her car back. You know what I mean? She, didn't really want to go through all that. She had already been through so much, just, getting, carjacked, with a gun at gunpoint. You know what I mean? So she talked to me. She like, bro, I just want my car back. You know what I mean? I'm like, just tell me you just want your car back or whatever. I said, but no, you know what I mean? This guy is going to do that again. You know what I mean? And that's what the detectives was telling her, she like, yeah, she don't want that to happen. But her schedule and everything, just everything in her life, she's like, man, I'm not even, really worried about it. Well, the detective wouldn't give her car back, until she came and, testified and wrote a statement and all that stuff like that. And literally, even after the detective was like coming to her because she stopped answering the phone. You know what I mean? She was like, I'll get the car back. You know what I mean? Because it's her car. So she like, I get it, so she stopped answering the phone and all this stuff like that. So the detective started going to her house, you know what I mean? Parking outside her house and all that. And then on this one day, he followed her all the way to work, so she called me. She like, man, I'm mad as hell. I stopped answering the phone or whatever. And now the detective, he followed me to work. Now it's involving my job. I don't want my job to be, wondering why the detectives is following me to work and all that stuff. So I'm like, well, you need me to pull up, you know what I mean? Because, I go holler at this guy or whatever, you know what I mean? No, I'm just about to just do it. I'm tired of this, you know what I mean? I'm just going to get this over with. So she goes through the statement stuff and all that stuff like that. Now, throughout the court process, because, he had to go to district court before he could get bonded over to circuit court to go down to Wayne County or whatever. Throughout that process, that legal process, my sister's assailant, the guy who robbed her, was able to get her personal information throughout the court process. So he was able to get her address to her home, right? And he gave that information to his girlfriend, and his girlfriend gave that information to one of his blood homeboys, and they coordinated to have his homeboy in the streets shoot my sister in the driveway coming out of home here. Within a week, the police found out what happened, how it happened. Of course, put pressure on the girl. The girl agreed to testify against her boyfriend, who carjacked my sister, and the shooter who she gave the information to passed it from her boyfriend. And she did. She testified, eventually ended up testifying on both of the individuals. She received 11 years for her cooperation, and both of the individuals received a natural life, as well as additional time for carjacking, for witness tampering, and things of that nature. My sister's death, sparked a lot of outrage, and it also changed some laws. So Dana Nessel, the Attorney General from Michigan, came out with 2 bills in my sister's name to protect the rights of those victims and witnesses who have the balls and have the guts to go out and speak out against these criminals who are out here victimizing innocent women and children. So now there are 2 bills in my sister's name called the Starkeisha Thompson bill.
Yeah. All right. So just to pivot, to fast forward to when it all fell down, right? So right now we talking about the actual indictment, right? If you can, let us know what was you indicted for, and talk about the charges that you, along with the rest of, the people, was charged with, and just that whole process of them going wire, you know, phone taps and just etc. if you can.
Yeah. So I personally was charged with 2 charges. I was indicted for racketeering conspiracy, which is conspiracy to commit racketeering, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. Some of the substances that I was charged with was heroin, meth, fentanyl, cocaine, crack, and weed. Mind you, I wasn't in possession of any of those things, or I wasn't charged with possession of any of those things, or I wasn't charged with distribution of any of those things. I was just simply charged with conspiracy, meaning that my co-defendants may have been charged with it and conspired to do it. And since I was a part of the enterprise or vice lords, I was charged with it as well. I was charged with 2 counts, but it was over 39 counts on my actual indictment. So people was charged from everything from RICO conspiracy, which out of the 40 individuals that was on my case, 30 of us was charged with the RICO charge. But the additional 10 was just charged with either drug charges or violence. But everything was on my indictment from murder to drug dealing, you know, extortion. Yeah.
And when you so how did you realize that the feds were on you? Like, was it a situation that stood out to you that made that, you know, kind of brought it on your radar, or you found out when they were actually kicking doors in?
I found out when they actually kicked the doors in. To be honest, I didn't see it coming at all. Even when they came and raided the house, over 15 federal agents, ATF, DEA, I asked them, what is y'all here for? I'm thinking that, you know, they got the wrong house. Gotta be. Clearly nothing going on here. But when I asked, they pulled out a paper and showed me 3 pictures of myself and was like, oh yeah, you a gang leader. You a shot caller. We here for you. You know?
Okay, so walk us through like maybe like some of the evidence that they were able to collect to link you to, because if I ain't mistaken, I think a part of it that they were mentioning were by you being a shot caller, you were sending hits in the prison. You were orchestrating and getting things, you know, done or whatever. So like, what was they putting on you versus what the reality really was?
So, well, the reality is I was charged with over 20 overt acts. So in order to be charged with a RICO, you have to have at least 2 racketeering acts. And I had over 20 acts. So I had 21, I think to be exact, racketeering acts. And that all ranged from sending and organizing stabbings inside of the Michigan Department of Corrections. I was alleged to be giving lower rank gang members drugs for them to sell in furtherance for the gang. All the way down from things to retaliation plots against the murders of my sister. So those were some of the racketeering acts that I was charged with.
So in terms of, I know we was having a conversation and sending money to people in prison played a factor into them connecting you.
Oh yeah. So what they do is, so like in prison, in the Michigan Department of Corrections, what they did was I came home from prison in 2016 after doing several years. Got a phone, you know, iPhones came out and I got that phone. So when they started investigating us in 2018, I had already been home from prison for 2 years. So, you know, you get home and you holler at your guys, man, I'm home, whatever, here's my number. So everybody who contacted my phone for them 2 years, well, even longer because I wasn't arrested until 2021. So for those few years, everybody who ever called my phone from the MDLC, they had every call. So what they did was they gave my number to the people in the Michigan Department of Correction. They said, give me everybody who ever called this phone number. And they furnished them with everybody who ever called my phone number. And all those calls was in my discovery, as well as anybody else on my case. Their phone calls was on my discovery. And I for years, I sat and listened to hundreds of thousands of phone calls. just evidence. You know what I mean?
And when you, like, just in general, when you were listening to it, like, was there anything that stood out to you where you like, damn, I shouldn't have said this, or
Honestly, yeah. So I was off parole. You know, I made it off parole. I'm doing good. And, you know, so I'm not thinking, you know, that I'm under investigation or something like that. Here in the state of Michigan, marijuana is legal, as you know. So yeah, I was on the phone. I did hear conversations where, you know, the guys asking what you went to, whatever. And, you know, I got the bowls, you know what I'm saying? I'm selling weed because it's legal in the state of Michigan. But what you got to know is it's illegal in the feds, and you don't know if you're being investigated or not. So while you thinking you cool, I'm gonna just sell weed. Well, if you under investigation, all that weed you sold is federally, you know what I mean? You getting charged with it. So so yeah, that's one of the main things. And then, you know, obviously, you know, people when the death of my sister happened, you know, people, you know, asking about, you know, hey, what's going on with this, with that, you know, send me names and all that. You know, people concerned and trying to, you know, serve justice or whatever. So, you know, some of those conversations is what led to my indictment as well.
for sure. Okay, so walk us through the, you know, the process until you actually getting your time. Because even right here, man, I'm seeing paperwork, and there were people that corroborated, you know what I mean? And like, even if I can, like, I'm looking at this paperwork, and there's people that corroborated that didn't even get any reward for you know, for corroborating.
Man,
So,
you had niggas that told, bro, and you got all my paperwork, you know what I mean, right there. You got niggas that told that they wasn't offered anything, you know what I mean? And the police even told them, you're not getting nothing. The government told them, you're not getting nothing. And they still told. And they, you know, some guys in the streets, some guys in prison.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But
And that's a testament to like how bad it can get, where you have people around you that's supposed to be, you know, street guys that end up, you know, doing stuff like this. So if I could read, it says source of information is an inmate in Michigan Department of Corrections. There are no pending charges against him or her, etc., you know, by the ATF or any other law enforcement agency. So that's saying that they don't have no pending charges, nothing to really get them in trouble, right?
yeah.
Motivation for cooperating with law enforcement was a reduction in his or her state case to which he was already sentenced. Criminal history includes a 2002 felony conviction for second-degree homicide and 2018 conviction for robbery. Agreed to provide information regarding the AVLN without any promises made to him. No promises made to him. Provided a background on the AVLN. He advised that you, Cortez Thompson, is a universal elite of the 9-squad deck of the IVL. And Thompson is also on the AVLN board of Michigan. So all this information given for nothing, right?
Oh, there's nothing, bro.
So as you go forward, man, just walk us through that process. Walk us through you actually getting charged, and then, you know, coming home, like the circumstances and the things that allowed you to, you know, to be here today.
Okay, yeah. But before I answer that question, let me give a little context on what a SOI is. So a SOI is a source of information. Obviously it's a rat, you know what I mean? But it's different forms of rat and different forms of cooperating. And that's something I want to kind of give a little light on. So a SOI is an individual who's just furnishing information. And they're just doing it willingly, you know what I mean? They're not under any duress. They don't have any pending charges or anything like that. And they're just helping and cooperating in the investigation. But a SOI isn't going to testify. So essentially, a SOI or a rat like that, the information he give is just to help and further the investigation. But it cannot be used in a court of law, because any statement used against you you have the right to efface your accuser in a court. So SOI's statement won't be used in court, but it could be used to build a case.
To connect the dots.
Exactly. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got other forms of rats and cooperating witnesses and stuff like that, like a CI, which is a confidential informant.
Did y'all have any CIs?
Oh yeah, we had 2 CIs. One CI in question, he got paid over $250,000. You know what I mean? For 3 years of work, got paid $250,000.
Did you know this individual?
I didn't know him personally, no. No, I didn't know neither one of the CIs. They wasn't a part of the same.
Roughly how many people did you actually know that was connected to the case?
On my indictment?
Yeah.
Out of the 40 individuals charged, I only knew about 8. You know what I mean? So, you know, a lot of these guys I ain't even know. You know what I mean? And I mind you, some of these guys I ain't know, but yet and still I'm being charged with everybody's, you know, conduct. You know what I mean? So if I only know 8 people, 32 other people, you know, you charging me with what they got going on. So, you know, that shit really messed up for real. But if you don't know this, you know what I mean, you gonna continue to move how you move or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I got locked up, they arrested 31 people that day, June 3rd, 2021. And they 31 separate raids. And when they came in to pick us up, you know, a lot of people got caught with guns, a lot of people got caught with drugs and money and stuff like that. So those were additional charges on top of the charges that we were already being faced with prior to even being locked up, you know. And they used those additional charges as leverage for pleas and stuff like that. That's something that, you know, people need to understand. You know, when you go to get locked up and they pick you up when you got a gun, you know, that's additional time that you're looking at and additional points. In the feds, everything go by point system with the guidelines. But once I was locked up, you know, they took everybody, all my co-defendants down, downtown Detroit to the federal courthouse. We sat in the back for hours in a van. And then they interviewed each one of us, one by one. Prior to you know, us receiving our actual indictment, they interviewed us, you know, asked questions and stuff like that. And that's when I learned of the actual charges that I was being charged with.
So it was a conversation too that me and you talked about, and this was the beginning of, as we can see on your shirt, it says dropping my flag. What else?
Picking up my life.
Picking Up My Life, which is the name of your book that you wrote while being incarcerated, right? Critical decisions. You know, a lot of people say, man, once you get in, it ain't no getting out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in your situation, even though you've made your exit, you still did it the right way. You know, no smut on your name. You know what I mean? No negative, you know, energy surrounding your decision or anything like that. Talk about that decision, because now I want to get into, I kind of want to start segueing into your release and what you're doing right now, but we got to go, you know, to where the mental shift initiated.
Yeah. The transition in my life took place the day I was incarcerated. Once I was locked up and we was taken down to the federal building, and ATFs, you know, explained what was going on and everything like that. Then we got our actual indictment. So I got my actual indictment. My indictment is 172 pages long. I've never even heard of an indictment being so long. Our indictment literally is like a hood novel, a Donald's Gowan book, or, you know what I mean? Cold as Winter. You know, it's so much filth in it, you know what I mean? And, you know, like a hood novel, you know, you got slime ball, snake shit going on. You know what I mean? That wasn't, you know, that took place in our case. You know what I mean? You have so-called brothers, gang members, you know, who's supposed to be our brothers, you know, plotting to kill us. You know what I mean? But these are the same guys that, you know, we saying that we love. You know what I mean?
So it was actual people, like when you was reading through this for the first time, you got an opportunity to see a vantage point of the organization that was going on that you didn't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Sick, ill, shady.
Man, listen, straight up, bro. I'm reading the indictment. I'm seeing on dates where I'm just leaving with some of these individuals, and I'm showing them love and, you know what I mean, telling them I support them and any and everything we do. And then I look at that indictment and I see a phone call, a tap phone call from one of the individuals, and they saying, yeah, we about to kill Dog and them. You know what I'm saying? We about to kill Tez. We about to kill Getty. You know what I mean? So mind you, we all locked up together. See this? What the fuck? You know what I mean? Oh, hell no. Nah. You know what I mean? So, but obviously we already in, you know, custody and in trouble, to do something to react to what was said in that indictment would have just caused further, you know, charges or whatever. And this is what they expecting. They lock people up from different sets of vice lords that was essentially beefing and had situations going on, you know, with each other, you know, inside stuff, and they put us all together. And then, you know, they locked us all up and put us all together. It was 18 of us in one room. You know what I mean? So after reading the indictment and seeing all the shady shit that was going on with my so-called brothers, mind you, bro, I've been a good guy to my guys, you feel me? So to see some of the same individuals who I've been good to, you know what I'm saying, on some jealousy shit, backbiting, you know what I mean, because they want to be in a position that you in, you know what I mean? That shit hurt, bro. That shit hurt my soul. I cried, you know what I mean? Because these same niggas, you know what I mean, I would have gave the shirt off my back to. You know, these same niggas I done gave money to. These same niggas I done helped to try to put in positions where I'm giving back and we giving back in the community and stuff like that. Hey, bro, come over here and put y'all name and y'all face on this. We giving back in the community. We giving money. We giving away food. You know what I mean? But those same individuals were the same ones that was snaking, backbiting, trying to snake a nigga out. You know what I mean? So from that decision, you know, me, you know, being, coming into contact with that information, I made a decision. I'm straight. You know, I hollered at, you know, my chief and, you know, who was the head of the vice lords for the whole state of Michigan, who was the number one in my case. And I told him, like, bro, I'm done, bro. You know, and the climate of what was going on and everybody was catching the same information at the same time. He understood exactly where I came from. You know what I mean? And he gave me my walking papers. He released me, you know, and I thank God for that opportunity. But at the same time, I really wasn't asking. You know what I mean? My decision was made. Him vouching for it, you know, made it a easier transition. But I was willing to accept whatever may have took place afterwards because I had already, you know, I got sick and tired. You know what I mean? And it takes dissatisfaction to bring about a change. I was locked up. My son was 3 years old. You know, I've been in my son's life from the day I cut the umbilical cord. Now, how I'm gonna be? And I, you know, I got, you know, custody. So now I'm facing that, you know, they said I'm facing a mandatory minimum of 10 years and up to life because I'm charged with a RICO charge for some niggas. And I'm getting charged with what they got going on. And these same niggas is backbiting and trying to, you know, kill us. And they telling and indulging in homosexuality, man, hell no, bro. You know what I mean? Like you know, I was done.
Yeah, man, that's heavy, man. And it's just crazy that you saying that too, because as you go through this process and, you know, you become a part of something that you think like you never really know and can anticipate, you know, what the next person is really thinking and what's really going on, you know, in all organizations, jealousy, envy, you know, the fight for power, you know, is always present. And it's just hard to monitor that. So to get that information in that type of circumstance, man, I know that was a lot. So you, as you say, mandatory 10 years, right? But you didn't do 10 years. Break that down.
So throughout the trial process, shout out to my lawyer, Henry Shard. Throughout the trial process, I learned a lot about the intimate details of the case. I learned a lot about the transcripts as far as the jury, the grand jury transcripts, what was submitted to the judge to get warrants and stuff like that. So I'm a legal beaker. When I was fighting my case, helping my lawyer, a lot of people sit back and they just allow their lawyer to do the job. Well, I wasn't one of those, you know. But throughout that process, I seen where they was tapping my phone illegally. They was tapping my phone before they even had authorization. And I learned that through phone calls and a discovery and matching up the dates from the actual warrant subpoena signed from the judge. So that was, that's against my law. That's against the laws, constitutional laws. So that was one of my defenses on, getting my case thrown out. You know what I mean? So I used that, for defense, and, let the, prosecutor and all of them on notice about, the violations against my rights. Had I not done that, then I wouldn't even be here, right now. You know what I mean? So when they start coming with pleas with everybody after the first trial and the second trial group, which mostly everybody was convicted and found guilty, from everything from murder to, drugs and all of that. They started coming out with a lot of pleas or whatever. So I was able to bargain for an even better plea since y'all had violated my rights. Anyway, you know what I mean?
No, good. And so at what point did you begin to get the book going?
So,
and for the record too, man, like I actually saw that paperwork too. Like we went through, the paperwork and saw everything, the dates when you got the other, that whole conversation of getting the other phone and, whatever. Like that was, that was bold business. And a lot of times that's a prime example. Fight for yourself, because it'd be so many, so much holes in illegal stuff that is taking place on the government end just to get a conviction, that if you being lazy with your life, you won't benefit. You know what I mean? So
so it's easy to just sit back and let it do itself, but you got to. And me being in the situation, I already had 5 felonies. You know what I mean? So my exposure and my guidelines was high. 144 months or something like that. You know what I mean? Just off my priors. So even though I wasn't found in possession of no drugs, I didn't distribute any drugs. I wasn't charged with distribution of any drugs or with any possession of any firearms. But my past from convictions over 15 years ago, played a role in my sentence. So yeah.
So let's talk about the book, man.
Dropping my flag, picking up my life. Man. So from that day that I was arrested, I divorced my old ways. I made it my business to right my wrongs. And in doing so, I started to mentor those around me, as well as, while I'm going through my legal process, helping my co-defendants to find the holes in their case. I just went on a path, man. I tapped back in with my spiritual source through the Nation of Islam, reached out to Minister Troy and other brothers, you know what I mean, who, just poured into me, man. And, after I made the decision to walk away from the gang, man, I just embraced, change fully. I began to take classes while I'm incarcerated. I took parenting classes. I took cognitive thinking changes, classes, and just, started to be the change myself that I wanted to see. I began to write my book while I was at Milan Correctional Facility, and still in pretrial. I was in Milan Detention Center, still in pretrial. And I just wanted to, after so many years of reading my discovery and going through my indictment, where, they painted this picture of me. And I didn't want them to have the last word on my life. You know what I mean? So I wanted to write my own story because, the federal government, they tend to just highlight all the bad. But throughout my life, I tried to get myself together, and I did get myself together for a lot of those years. But they didn't talk about all the food drives that I organized and gave away, looking out for the needy and the homeless. They didn't talk about me working for the city of Detroit for 3.5 years, being a senior tree artisan. They didn't talk about, none of the good things. They didn't talk about me catching no cases since 2009. You know what I mean? They didn't talk about none of that. So I'm like, I'm gonna write my own story. And I wanted to show people that you can, walk away. You can get up out the streets. You can change your life. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people look at the position that I had and see, such a high-ranking gang position and be like, wow, you know what I mean? If he can do it, you know what I mean, then I know I can too. So I wrote my book, man, to inspire those who want to, stop the destructive cycles that lead to prison or premature death. You know what I mean? I really, poured into my thoughts. My book was very therapeutic because I addressed a lot of issues, that I never just, dealt with, growing up, how I grew up in poverty, I seen a lot of death, destruction. I played a role in, taking lives. And that's something that I never really dealt with my sister's death. So, a lot of things, me being a victim of gun violence, I never really addressed. So me sitting down in a cell, for months writing my story, it delivered me from a lot of the pain that I was going through that I didn't even know it was affecting me.
Yeah, man. So now you home, man, and even now you just left, from an interview that's gonna be aired on the news, where of course, obviously now you're part of CVI group. If you can, talk about that and talk about just everything that you got going on now.
So so even before I was released from prison, I said what I was going to do. I said I was, giving up the gang and I was going to be a gang interventionist. Who better to, teach, to stay away from the things that, hindered me in life, you know what I mean, than a real gang leader, you know what I mean?
And if I can too, man, when we talk about people that left the gang culture alone, I know you personally.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a testament of I'm tired, not I'm scared.
Right.
That's important for people to know. This brother is a soldier, a warrior, always being, you feel me? And will go the distance, you feel me? But it's a matter of being tired, not being scared, When you make that change, that don't mean, for the lack of a better way, don't mean you pussy or, oh man, he done turned to a pussy, he ain't with the shits no more. And you not on that end, right. You get what I'm saying? It's more of a directed and righteous way. I just don't want people to get the wrong perception of people that are gang leaders that decide to change their life and thinking that, that you not cut or that you get what I'm saying?
You change your life and you doing something for the youth. You going against the grain to say, you know what, this ain't right how I grew up, you know what I mean? That's gangster. You know what I'm saying? That's what's really gangster. When I was sitting up in that cell and when I was sitting up at Milan, bro, only thing I seen on TV was our people killing our people, kids dying left and right. This when I was in prison, that's when CVI was birthed. Community Violence Intervention was birthed. It came out of a necessity because it was so much death and destruction going on in our communities. A lot of these organizations, street organizations, vice lords, GDs and all that, they came to stop what's going on right now. And now a lot of these gangs is the most people that's, involved in that. You know what I mean? So, man, come on, bro. Like I was tired, bro. You know what I mean? And if I don't do it, who else? You know what I'm saying? Like, who gonna continue to, try to right the wrongs? You know what I mean? Because it's not many. I don't know many gang leaders who said official, like ain't told on nobody, stand on business. You feel me? It's like, you know what? I ain't about to do this. You know what I mean? Because, and I try to do it the other way, stay in it, you know what I mean? And try to steer guys the right way. But at the end of the day, bro, when you standing in the mud, it's hard to clean yourself up. You know what I mean? Because everybody don't have the same mindset as you. And now when we're dealing with the federal government, it's not like the state law. The state law is 9/10 of the law. You get caught with something, you locked up. Well, I got caught with nothing. I did no drug selling. I didn't commit no acts of violence. You feel me? But yet and still, since I'm associated with these guys, I fall victim to what happened. No, bro. That's not going to happen. I can't sit up here and tell my son or my son asks, why you not in my life? Why you not in my life, daddy? You know what I mean? And I say, oh, because I chose my bros over you? No, sir, bro. No, sir. So, I had to make that decision. And that was the best decision I made in my whole life. Period. I've been shot up. I've been a victim of gun violence. My sister lost her life to a gang member. But yet and still, I'm on a drill trying to, get justice in my own way. But how can I look at this individual when he a product of his environment just like me? I'm a gang member. You understand what I'm saying? So I had to look myself in the mirror. You know what I mean?
You know what? I would like for you to speak to that because it's a lot of gang violence that's going on and the root of it. What I always tell people, man, a lot of Detroit beef and things that take place always stems from high school. Crews. You get what I'm saying? This is before, like gang culture was really what it was in terms of colors, flags. Of course, the vice lords, GDs, like those are legendary, gangs. But in Detroit, you know, everything started with crews and neighborhoods and things like that. Boom, high school beefs that end up escalating the moment somebody die, right? With you being someone that lost a relative, your sister, you know, to gang violence, and then you look and see what's going on in Detroit, where people feel the necessity to get back. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we always hear this saying where people say, man, some beefs, man, could be squashed, but, you know, I understand, man, once blood is shed, it can never be repaired.
That's false.
Speak to that.
That's false. How long is we gonna continue that cycle? You know what I mean? How long is we gonna continue the cycle of I kill you, you kill me. I kill your people, you kill my people. You know what I mean? Like, we perpetuating the Willie Lynch. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't stop it now, my whole family can be gone. Your whole family can be gone. You know what I mean? Now we got innocent kids that's getting hit because, you know, guys using switches or, you know, ain't walking up like how I used to be back in the day. When I grew up, bro, gang banging and all that, bro, we wasn't doing drive-bys. You know what I'm saying? Like, we was hitting our targets. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, it can stop, you know, and it has to stop. And the thing is, more people have to do what I'm doing to bring awareness. Because if nobody is out here telling the truth or speaking it like it really is, or trying to be popular and say I'm gang and I'm doing this because I want this clout or I want, you know, whatever it is, because you're not sure of yourself. See, when I was younger, I wasn't sure of myself, you know, but now I'm 37 years old. I don't care what perception is. I don't care what my mans and them think. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, my son don't call them father. You know what I mean? When I was locked up, my son, bro, I had to miss my son riding his bike for the first time, going to school for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, that hurt me. You know what I mean? Had to have my son's mother bring my son up into the visitor room. My son, 3-4 years old, got to get searched. His mama got to get searched. You know what I mean? That's traumatizing to a young man, to a child, to a woman. It's traumatizing to me to sit up there and watch that, especially when I've already been through it. I've already been in state prison. You know what I mean? How many times I'm going to keep going through the same thing?
With the internet, you know, that play a large factor into keeping up with, I guess I would say, the image and perception. Mm-hmm. You know, a person do something to an individual that you rock with. First thing people gonna do on the internet is troll. Mm-hmm. You know, in terms of a man's ego, because the natural thing is, bro, if you trolling me, like, you is playing me like I'm sweet.
You want an emotion. But to be honest, that's what cowards do, bro. You know, because if I got a problem with you, I'm gonna bring it to you directly. I'm not about to let the world know I got a problem with you. You know what I mean? So that's like the new generation stuff, you know what I mean, with this internet. But see, what guys got to understand is, you know, with my case, not me per se, but majority of the individuals on my case was on my case because of the internet, because of social media. It's 40 people that was charged on my case, but the ATF and the federal government was investigating over 150 people. So now you have 110 other vice lords who still out in the streets now today, who they got all their social medias, Facebook, Instagrams, Gmails. They got all their, you know, surveillance of the houses and all that stuff. So it wasn't just the 40 people that was under investigation. 110 people, you know, all their information is a part of my discovery. So I learned a lot about them, even the people who wasn't on my case. So that really was allowing me to be like, yeah, I made the right decision on walking away, because how I'm in here, I ain't never got arrested on my case. The feds never raided my house or got anything. They picked me up on the day they picked all of us up. But what I learned throughout my discovery is some of the people who not even on my case they was already got raided and guns and drugs picked up from them houses. Why they wasn't on my case? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I learned a lot, you know, so, you know, when you know better, you will do better. And I learned throughout this process, there's no right way to do nothing wrong.
You know what I mean? Oftentimes especially a lot of us who went to state prison, we get home, we be like, you know what? I ain't selling dope no more. I'ma sell weed. You know what I'm saying? It's legal in the state of Michigan. Woo, woo, woo. But man, to be honest, bro, if I went home and just sold weed, I would still be in the same situation because I was placing myself around the wrong individuals that allowed us to get investigated federally. So now my weed becomes a federal charge. And weed is the same thing as heroin in feds. You know what I mean? So like, it's no right way to do nothing wrong. Ain't no, oh, I'm gonna have a revolver so I can keep my bullets. I ain't gonna have no switch and leave those cases. Man, come on, you a fool if you think that you gonna outsmart somebody who, man, the federal government has a 99% conviction rate. They pay a rat over $250,000, bro, to snitch on his guys, bro. You know what I'm saying? And mind you, our whole case started over this one individual who was a part of a gang, Travelers, who said, went told his parole agent, hey, my bro's thinking about killing my mans who one of my bros. I don't feel like he should die, so I'm coming to talk to y'all and let y'all know. They said, what? He like, yeah. They like, oh, well, you want to talk to somebody? He like, yeah, I'll talk to somebody. They brought the ATF in. You know what I'm saying? And he began to start working with the ATF. And that's how our whole case started.
And you know what? I'm glad that you saying that, man. When you got a group of people, as we say, bro, you can't calculate what a person
gonna do
is waking up that morning feeling, or how they gonna respond to the activities that's going on. So out of 100 people, 200 people, see, we always talking about numbers.
Yeah.
You know, we run, you know, like I hear certain podcasts and different things where it's like, oh, this group runs this MDOC, this group runs, you know, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, okay, y'all got 200 members. But at the end of the day, though, like, bro, you can't really control 200 people and how they gonna move and what they life situations is and what they gonna wake up on this particular day.
Bro, you got some of my guys that I bless on my case, bro, that they came and grabbed from the state joint. Mind you, out of 40 people, you had some individuals they came and got from Michigan. Some people they got, you know, in the streets. Some people they got from the Michigan Department of Corrections. You know what I mean? People who was already serving years in prison, you know, that got indicted, you know. They grabbed some people from Illinois, you know. Yeah, you know what I mean? So they came to Chicago, they came to Detroit, they came aside the prisons. They grabbed people from everywhere, bro. You don't know what's going on in Chicago.
Right.
You don't know what's going on in the joint when you at home. You understand what I'm saying? One of man, come on, bro. Like, you can't control what everybody got going on, man. Some people gonna wake up and be like, fuck the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, tough.
And fuck the fact that everything I do reflects the bros. You know what I mean? They not people selfish, bro. You know what I mean? People, even when I was growing up, bro, we was snaking hitting licks. You had some of my guys and cousins and them, man, they was known for stuffing. You know what I mean? Bryson and Baby D and all. Bro, we'll go hit the safe. You feel me? It may be 20, 30,000 in the safe. Man, before they even get out the cell, before they even get out the room, they done stuff 5,000. You know what I mean? So whereas we supposed to be coming through, you know, breaking it down, breaking bread, nigga, stuffing money before we even, you know what I mean? So that's what happens. But when you live in a doggy dog world, anything happens. That's why these niggas be snitching, because they think about themselves. You know what I mean?
Facts. And another point too, man, like, listen, bro, I wish the best for everybody. You know what I mean? I ain't with innocent people, you know what I mean, leaving, you know what I mean, to gun violence and senseless stuff. Like, you know, I ain't with children, you know, being hurt. Or even when it comes to retaliation in different situations because of that perpetual thing that's gonna take place where, you know what I mean, everybody gonna be, if we retaliated to everything, man, the whole world gonna be dead. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But one thing that I want to say, that I want the youngest, bro, to really understand, you will never be able to outsmart the police, bro.
No.
At the end of the day, they work 24/7, 365 shifts. Boom. this group work in the morning on your ass.
Yeah.
Take a break because it's mental fatigue, whatever. Now we got a fresh mind coming in for second shift.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
They working on your ass. Now we got the third shift coming in, another set of fresh brains.
And mind you, right? Not to cut you off, but mind you, say you gang, you going out the streets, you doing your thing, messing with your guys and all that stuff like that. Okay, you have to take a break. You got children, you got girl, whatever, you gonna leave over here and go spend some time with your family. That's you not on the block, you not with no switch, you not worrying about drilling. But even still, they're still monitoring you.
Still monitoring.
They monitoring you, your girl, her page, her activity, her address, anywhere you associate with. Bro, throughout my investigation, bro, my phone was being tapped. I had pole cameras outside of 2 of my addresses. They was physically surveying me, driving. You seen all the paperwork. Physically driving me, following me and everything like that. Now, mind you, I'm a high-ranking member. I had trucks following me with my gang members behind me for protection. And yet and still, they was following them and didn't even know it. You understand what I'm saying? You know the reason why? Because they got teams. They got people to follow you. When they feel that they get too close, they pull off and a whole nother car come from a whole nother direction. They got GPS. They pinged my phone. It was no hiding. Everywhere I went, they was on me, bro.
That's cold-blooded because the way you put that, because a person might feel like they on point.
Yeah.
Right? And you like, damn, man, I've been seeing this car follow me, bro. Boom. They realize, boom, so that now they put, now it's a whole other way. You like, oh, man, I'm tripping.
Sure.
Now your guard, it's just, you can't, when you in the streets and that can't be your job all day, every day, but it is their job all day, every day, man. You won't win, bro.
And they got, mind you, they got money, and money talk, bullshit walk. They paying somebody $250,000 to tell on you, somebody who don't even care about themselves. What you think they gonna do to you?
For real.
The other CI, the other confidential informant, bro, he got caught selling 10 grams of heroin, right? 10 grams, no, fentanyl, excuse me. He got caught selling 10 grams of fentanyl, right? Had no priors. ATF put the squeeze on him. I'ma tell. What? Bro, you ain't looking at no time.
For real.
And now you work to bring down your whole organization?
And
You work to bring down people in different states. Bro, it's so crazy. So at the end of the day, bro, you know, I can give a fuck about how a nigga feel, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because the people that matter to me is the people that was coming to see me. You understand what I'm saying? The people that look up to me for guidance. You know, I got little cousins and that's 17, 16 years old. I got nephews. I got nieces that's preteens and stuff like that, bro. I got to be here for them to show them the right way. I cannot sit back and say, yeah, KJ, you know, man, you know, I gave my life to this. You know what I mean? But sit back and tell you to do the right thing in school, and you know what I mean? I can't be no hypocrite.
And to keep it a buck with you nowadays, bro, the parents is giving the young men the flag.
Exactly.
Teaching them the culture.
Exactly. And I ain't gonna lie. You know, I was one of those people.
But we need you to. That's why I appreciate you being vulnerable and honest. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Because you one of the people that did everything that everybody, you get what I'm saying? But now you like, bro, I identify. But yeah, that's how I go, man. And that just perpetuate a whole nother generation.
Bro, so I grew up having my son, you know, throwing up VL, putting the 5 up, you know, in every pictures, you know what I mean? And now I don't even have him. You can't even throw nothing up. Don't know, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I don't want to perpetuate, you know, ignorance, you know what I mean? And, you know, I tricked myself, you know, trying to, you know, move about it in the right way. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, what I also want to get out, and this is one of the first thing my lawyer told me when he came to visit me while I was at Livingston County Jail, waiting to, you know, to get out on pretrial detention, which I never did after 4 trials. First thing my lawyer told me is, it's not illegal to be a vice lord. It's the first thing he told me. So I'm like, what the hell am I here for? You know what I'm saying? If it's not illegal for being a vice lord, because at the time, mind you, when I got arrested, bro, I'm already giving back in the community. You know what I mean? I'm a business owner. You know what I mean? I had just quit my job working for the city of Detroit. You know, I was, working and doing good, for years I, was doing, good. And, he like, yeah, it's not illegal to be a vice lord. I'm like, what I'm here for? He said, because it's illegal to violate state or federal law, and until you know the law, bro, you know what I mean? Because conspiracy charges, you know what I mean? The people you deal with can put you in the situation. You don't have to do nothing. You don't have to go out and do nothing. You don't have to sell a gun. You don't have to sell a drug. You don't have to shoot nothing. You know what I mean? Just be claiming the same thing that somebody else claiming. And when them RICOs come, like how Chief Bedison said, the feds is here and they will be getting, you better believe it. You know what I'm saying? Because the courtesy that they having now in Detroit, we didn't have that. We didn't get a warning. They didn't say the feds is about to start indicting people. They just came and grabbed us. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's important.
Do you feel like it's too late? Like for a lot of people, you feel like with them making that announcement that it's going
It's never too late, because I feel like this. If you're in trouble, you're already in trouble, right? But you can dig yourself deeper. Just like I explained, when they came and grabbed 31 of us that one day, a whole bunch of my co-defendants got caught with guns and drugs. So if you clean up now, bro, you can lessen that blow. If they coming, they coming. You can't stop that. You know what I'm saying? But you could change the way moving forward. And, bro, when I got sentenced by my judge, Jonathan J.C. Gray, who was a young black guy, one of the newest judges in the federal, I was able to show him my track record from the day I got locked up, all the classes that I participated in, me writing books, community leaders and chaplains and clergy members writing on my behalf to talk about my progression while I was locked up. You know what I mean? All that accounted for something when I got sentenced, because I already knew my plan. I already knew that I was coming home to be in community violence intervention. Yeah. And now, through the grace of Allah, that's what I'm doing. I work with the People's Action, which is one of the CVI groups in Detroit.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? So, manifestation is real. When you sick and tired, bro, can't nobody stop you, bro. Especially when it's, when God put you on that mission, bro.
Real talk. So if we can, man, the release of the book and all of that, bro, I want you to talk about the release of the book. When can people expect it? And then also talk about what you got coming up.
Okay, so the book is already out, man. Go and look on Amazon and all platforms. Dropping My Flag, Picking Up My Life. You can type in that title. You can type in my name, Cortez Thompson. The information will be up. And it's my memoir. And, I'm talking about my life, the good, the bad, and ugly. I'll be very transparent. Obviously, from this interview, I got a lot of shortcomings and I've done a lot of things. But I'll be open with that, because one thing I wanted people to understand is, I am you. You know what I'm saying? I've been through the same stuff you've been through. I had the same hurdles in front of me. You know what I mean? But I'm here today, a changed man, And like Tupac said, don't get it twisted. You feel me? Like, I'm a changed man, but I'm still the same old rider. You know what I mean? But the difference is I'm riding for a different cause now. You know what I mean? I'm riding for the youth. I'm riding for those that's impacted by poverty and, and lack of guidance. You know what I mean? So if I can be someone that steer you in the right direction, I'm sacrificing my time to be able to do so. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Well, man, I definitely appreciate this conversation, man. If you can, let the people know where to find you at on social media.
Man, I appreciate you, my brother, man. Like I said, man, find me on Cortez Thompson, PYPO, on Instagram, for Facebook, Cortez Thompson. You can look up my business, Put Your People on Instagram, and on Facebook as well.
Sir, that's what it is, man. Tez, the Foreign Magazine, Post of the Culture.
Yes, sir.
Let's get it.